A warm good morning to all esteemed speakers, honorable guests, beloved director Janat Shah, sir, respected professors, and all my fellow batchmates. On behalf of I Am Udaipur, I, Mugdha, along with my team from Saksham, the entrepreneurship cell of I Am Udaipur, would like to welcome you all to the third edition of the flagship event of E-Summit 2022, themed Zilch to Zillion, celebrating a decade of unicorn. And we aim to encourage all the stakeholders of the startup ecosystem to hold discussions on what it takes to gain a unicorn status, to help budding entrepreneurs understand how to package and present this dream in a lucrative format to venture capitalists, VCs, and walk on the way to startup. We are happy to announce our title partner, Secure Meters, associate partner, Tai Udaipur, startup brand partner, Rajasthan Venture Capital Funds, Insight partner, Business Insider India, cloud partner, Amazon Web Services, experience partner, in a can, and gifting partner, Ugao, grooming partner, Bombay Shaving Company, and online media partner, Pagal Guy. Indian Institute of Management Udaipur was established in 2011 and had completed a decade of excellence in management education. We are the youngest B school in India to be accredited by AACSB and have been featured in the prestigious Masters in Management QS World Ranking 2022 for the 3 consecutive years. We are also the youngest B school in the world to be listed for the third consecutive year on the Financial Times Masters in Management 2021 global rankings. With this, I would like to call Professor Janat Shah to enlighten us with his words of wisdom. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mugdha. Good morning. Sri Arjun Mohan and thought leaders from industry and entrepreneurs, participants of startup competition, faculty colleagues, and students. I join Saksham team in welcoming you to this E-Summit 22. I want to use this opening remarks to talk a little bit about the way we see role of this whole entrepreneurship ecosystem in a country, and how within Institute at IIM Udaipur, we're trying to create the research and an education environment which support this ecosystem. I think when we look at future ahead, we know the center of gravity is going to shift to east. And we are hoping that India is going to play a prominent role. And we have a very interesting contrast between the way China is looking at future and the way India is looking at future. China looks at future in terms of it's a state which is going to drive the growth. Well, in India, I think it's an entrepreneurial energy which is going to drive the growth. And that's where it's extremely important that for a growth as well as for a job creation, we need to create with a strong ecosystem in this whole entrepreneurship space. At Institute, and again, we feel management institutions in general, and IIM Udaipur in particular, need to create this strong ecosystem which will support entrepreneurship. And I'm going to focus on what it's an opportunity to just try and talk about what we've been doing in this space and what we hope to do in future. And somewhere where do we see a role of a event like this, when we talk about developing this whole entrepreneurship ecosystem. When we started, way back in 2011, I think we've been keen that we need to create this institute, which is a future-oriented and which should have a institution of global repute. And within that, we've been looking at education as a transformational journey. And within the transformation journey, what happens in a curriculum, what happens in the student clubs and committees, Saksham being part of it, and what happens the way we help them, their career is a part of this transformation journey. And in this, we have identified that, it'll be very important for us to create certain mindsets in education. And one of the important mindset is an entrepreneurial mindset. And when we talk about entrepreneurship, obviously we're talking about students starting a new venture, but it's not just restricted to that. We're talking about some of our alumni, after working for a few years, want to start a venture. And also within organization where they're going to work, they can be entrepreneurs. Because I think it's this mindset which is important in terms of wherever you're going to go. So what have we been doing in this space? So I think when we look at curricular, we've been offering our courses in our entrepreneurship space. When we look at the club and committee, Saksham has been leading this initiative. Has been doing a great job in this regard. We also have an incubation center which has been supporting both, incubate the entrepreneurship ventures which would be started by student, but also within the region. We also have created various policies, which are going to support this entrepreneurship. For example, if student want to do work on the venture, instead of doing a summer placement, we encourage that. We encourage students to take risk and say, we will not take part in a placement, we'll give them a holiday and they'll come back, kind of thing. And so we have several such initiatives through which we've been supporting this journey. When we look at this, event like this, the reason why this event like this are very important is for several reasons. One is obviously, we need a entity like Saksham which promotes this. But there's a larger issue of developing certain broader capabilities. And we think when we have an event like this, which is completely student driven, it creates certain leadership capability in the students, leadership and execution capability, which we can't, do it in a classroom. So very proud that a team like Saksham, when works on an event like this, it's completely student driven. I and my faculty colleagues and other colleagues from the institute play very little role. So obviously it's nice to see the kind of, theme they have come up with, the line of speakers they have lined up. But it's a proud moment when we see that it's completely student driven and they do a great job. Also, it's an opportunity for all of us, not just, students, but for us faculty as also, to understand that what does it mean to develop this research ecosystem and to hear from this, leaders in terms of the way see the challenges in creating this entrepreneurship ecosystem from a research perspective and a practice perspective. Now, so I'm looking forward to hearing the wonderful set of speakers we have in terms of the way they have looked at this journey of creating unicorns. The only thing I'm going to say is, I think it's important. I mean, we must celebrate that we have so many unicorns today. But I know, when we look at entrepreneurs like Arjun Mohan and others, the unicorn status or the wealth creation is the one of the outcome. But I think they are in that space because they want to make a difference to the world. So I think we would encourage all of you to be in that space for a right reason. I'm sure, the valuations and all that are there. But the key is because you have ideas and you want to make a difference to the world and be part of this wonderful future, which we all of us want to plan for India. So thank you. And I'm looking forward to this wonderful line of speakers we have, which will lead to a conversation which will continue throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for insightful details which you have shared. And we have now, to kick off our event today, our keynote speaker from the sunrise sector of India, EdTech. This sector bloomed the most during the pandemic. And today, we have one of the crown jewels of EdTech from India. This company was started back in 2015 and finally joined the Unicorn Club in 2021 after Byju's and an academy in EdTech sector. And for all the Shark Tank fans out there, you might remember this company as the phrase lifelong learning. Yes, you guessed it right. It's Upgrad. So we have Arjun Mohan, the CEO of Upgrad. He brings the expertise in EdTech and previously spent a decade with the EdTech giant Byju's. Today, he will be talking about his experience and learnings from building and scaling Upgrad to where it is today. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Mugdha. And thank you, Dr. Janat Shah. I couldn't hear the entire thing, but fabulous to start the Sunday hearing you. Looking forward for more interaction. So good morning, everyone. Interestingly, I thought this session was on Monday. I was never expecting you guys to spend your Sunday on this, but yeah, good to see the spirit to focus your Sunday on something like this. And thank you so much for having me here. I have been given a format of 30-minute monologue and a 15-minute discussion. I always believe that better ideas comes out through discussion. So I don't want to spend too much of time giving a monologue on what I did and what all things happened. So I'll try to give out some stories. I'll try to finish it in 15 minutes. Then let's open the dice out to questions. I would like to hear your ideas. I would like to answer as much as possible based on my experience. And I think that's where best of the discussions will start. Right? So we'll follow that format if that's okay with all of you. So, the brief given to me was this is about entrepreneurship. So I will speak more about my entrepreneurship journey. But when I saw the headline you have given for this event, the journey of the unicorns, few things came into my mind. So probably I'll start with that. So I've been in this industry for quite a long time. I started working in EdTech before EdTech was a buzzword. So I think I started my work with Byju Ravindran in 2007. That is when we started our education work. So what has happened is that, a lot of people are today in India are lucky to have been part of this journey of a unicorn. Okay, there are around, we are closing that 50 mark in unicorn. So quite a few people have seen how a unicorn is built. But for me, I've been extremely lucky because I've not been just part of one unicorn journey. I've been part of two unicorn journey. So I joined Byju's when we were a small, hobby education enterprise. And when I left the company, we were valued at $10 billion. I again joined Upgrad before our valuation came in, and today we are around $1.2 billion. So I find it very lucky that I was able to do these kind of things in my career. So, what I plan to do is share a few things on what happened, how it worked out, so on and so forth. So the reason why I came to education in 2007 was only because of my passion in teaching. I've always loved to teach. I have always liked interacting with students. I've seen myself that I learn the most when I try to teach something, because then you will have to learn every aspect of it, right? So it's that passion which got me into education. Once I got in there and I met somebody like Byju Ravindran, extremely passionate about making a change, that inspired me. And then this passion changed into a belief that we can make a huge change in the Indian education sector. So when we started off Byju's initially started off as an offline CAT coaching centers. Our idea was that we will speak, or we will try to take sessions for working professionals and tell them how to crack an exam rather than just going and redoing all your basics. So we found that the approach was super popular. I'm sure that some of you would have seen that approach when you were preparing for your CAT examination. The videos are still around. So we found that this was super popular, and a lot of people used to, were takers for this. Over a period of time, we even observed that our classrooms could be scaled to any number. We went from 100 to 400 to 1,000, and finally had classrooms which are 3,000 people strong. And even when we do a class of 4 hours, nobody really used to ask us any doubts. So we thought that if everyone understood everything, or at least nobody is asking any doubt, why to even have a physical teacher out there? So then we look back on why were we able to do that. Why we were able to do that is because we had very few lecturers, and most of the sessions used to be taken by us. And we had so much of experience that we knew exactly where a doubt can come from a particular student. So the lecturer was always taking into account the doubt that can come and explain it out. Right. So we said, okay, if this is a framework and this is a mechanism, this is an idea which we can use, why don't we try doing it in a classroom where the teacher is not physically present? And that's where the first seeds of digital learning was sown. So we tried out the concept with a JE product. We always used to run a JE crash course in Bangalore. That was a very popular one. And we had 3,000 seats, and within days, the 3,000 seats used to fill out. The people who used to come after that, we used to tell them that we don't have a seat. So we said that, okay, why don't we create a product for a JE crash course and give it to the students who are not getting a seat in our session? So we did a product with a 30-day straight recording. So it was literally recording for 10, 12 hours a day. So we did that in 30 days straight. We created tabs, and then we just burned 60 tabs, and that was the first ever online product to be created. And whoever could not get a seat, we told them that, hey, we have this option. Do you want to take this? So at that time, the crash course, the 30-day crash course was sold at 25,000 rupees. And we sold the tab exactly at the same price. The 60 tabs got sold out in one evening. And that's where we realized that there seems to be something there which can be built into a large business. So this is where it all started. One thing good about Byju's or any other organization I worked with is that we have been obsessed with scale from day one. So it was all about how do we scale it? How do we take it to the next level? How do we ensure that it can go and help the students in every nook and corner of this country? So we decided hence that we will focus on the K-12 market and not really the test prep market. Why K-12 market? Because it was our observation that the competitive examinations in India, at least at that time, was predominantly cracked by city-dwelling students, because they had the right infrastructure to provide a structured training process to crack these examinations. So we said that why don't we take this idea and try to democratize it, create a product which can be taken by any student across the country, which will give them that thought process by the 12th standard, which can help them crack the examination. And that was how the Byju's product was built. It was always a product built for the tier 2 market. And that is the reason why the sales came from the tier 2 market. I mean, see, most of the products in India are always created for the tier 1 market because that's the easy market, right? We created it for the tier 2 market. And when we were clear about our consumer, everything in the organization was built for that market. The marketing process, the sales process, everything was built on that. So that's what happened. Of course, the final idea was always about making that impact in a student's life by giving them the right product which can help them crack top examinations. So we went in there, and the rest of the stories, you know how we scaled, how we went to the next level, so on and so forth. Now, what I felt over a period of time is that as online learning became more and more ubiquitous and more people started taking it, one observation I had is that, see, education, if there is no outcome which you can promise or which you can deliver at the end of it, right? becomes an unsustainable business. And that was a problem which I saw in the K-12 education. The K-12, what happens is that the consumer or the person who is using it is finally the student, while the person who is paying for it is the parent. And most of the times, the students are not very serious. So you are having a product, an online product, which requires a lot of self-motivation. And the students, to a large extent, are not really self-motivated to do these kind of things. Hence, what ends up happening is that the focus required to make this product successful or get an outcome out of this product are not normally there in a student who is working on this online product. So what I saw was that even after building the best of the products, after having a lot of engagement also, I saw that the outcome we were able to generate for a student who is trying to crack a competitive exam or trying to get good marks in school was limited. Because you need this guy to sit and do it. In a classroom, of course, because the teacher is there and because there is a discipline push that is happening there, people ends up doing it. In online, that needs to come from yourself. That was one reason I started questioning myself that is K-12 online at such a high scale possible? Because it requires a lot of self-motivation from the student side. So in education, we say that education is basically 50% teaching and 50% learning. 50% learning should come from the student side. While in online teaching or online learning, it's actually 70% student and 30% teaching. 30% teaching. So that combination or that commitment from the student side is very tough to come when they are a young grad or young student whose money has been paid by the parent. So this is one reason why we tried to look at implementing online education in a big way in higher ed. The logic was very simple. In higher ed, it is majorly a working professional who is coming in to take these courses. Why is he or she coming in? Because there is a strong need there, right? They're already screwed. That is why they are coming in, right? They know that this is an outcome I need, and for that I need this course. Hence, half of your work of the self-motivation or focus from their side is taken care. And that's what helps Upgrad in delivering the outcomes. So today, if you look at what we do in Upgrad, what we have tried to do is we have tried to create online courses, whether it is degrees or diplomas or certificate programs at a level which it will be delivered in a top class university. So the way I always compare us with a MOOC platform like Coursera is that Coursera is a library with a lot of content. While what we have built is a university, an online university, or at least that is what we want to aspire to do. We have tons of tools to ensure that the student is focused, the student engagement are high, and the student outcomes do happen. And that is the reason why we have around 89% completion rate versus a 2%, which happens normally in MOOCs. And 5 out of the 6 people who have done the course from us say that they have got the outcome. So this is the essence. So now why I told you this part is that I want to focus on 2-3 things, which I always believed in and which I think has been the essence of my entrepreneurship journey. Number one is always look at the customer's long-term outcomes. If you are not able to give them that outcome they are looking at, maybe you will be able to build a large business through strong marketing ideas, but sustaining that and building a profitable system will be very, very hard. That's what is happening with Byju's also today, right? So you look at what is happening in the K-12 segment. There are so many players coming in. The price point, which were in the range of 25,000, has come down to as low as 500 rupees per month. Subscription is taking over things, right? Because fundamentally, the issue is that the brand has not been able to create a sustainable system where the student is on themselves coming back later. So that is something which I believed, and that's been one of the things which I always chased. And that's what took me to higher ed and what I did in Upgrad and how our journey is. The second is, and this is something business students, you should all keep in mind. Always, always, always try to build things at scale. You may be a startup entrepreneur, you may be doing something for a small niche today, but always keep in mind the scale you want to get to. If you don't optimize and plan for the scale in the initial years or when you're designing your entire product, it's very tough to catch up. So that's something which we have honestly tried from day one, which allowed us. See, our offline business has been in Byju's was very successful. It was a business which used to run at almost 85% margin, and we were profitable. The best thing we could have done is we could have let it be, made a lot of money there, and said that, okay, fine, this is great, and it's pretty good for us. We are having a good life. But we didn't do that, right? Baiju was ready to actually destroy his offline business. And for growing his online business. There was a time when the transition was becoming tough, where he actually told his offline students that anyone who is enrolling for the offline will get this tab free. And then he pivoted it out saying that anyone who takes the tab can for free attend my classes. So that requires a lot of faith in your idea. And the reason only is that he understands that there is only some limit to which you can scale an offline business, and online is the future of it. So these are two things which I always believed in and which helped me a lot. And I would say that if I need to tell you theme of my entire journey, this hasn't been, right? I don't want to go more and more into my monologue telling you multiple stories, but it will be better to take questions from you and then probably explain more of these ideas. Anyone with the question? Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Participants, you can raise your hands and we can take questions.
Always the first person asking the question is tough, right? Yeah. Okay. We got one person. Yeah, Shaurya.
You have to unmute.
Hello. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, Shaurya, you're audible.
One thing I want to ask that since you have kept the consumer first at the starting phase different, and then after that you change the consumer phase, that you change the market perspective. So wasn't it was difficult for you to change the product at different market levels?
Sorry, you're talking about moving from Byju's to upgrade. Is that what you're talking about? From a K-12 to a higher ed?
You can take it to Byju's to upgrade. But what my point is that first you have said that you at starting phase you have targeted the consumer at different level. Then you have changed the product and took the company to different levels. So wasn't it was difficult for you to change the product or change the service at the different level?
Yes, so talking about moving from offline to online. Is that what the context is?
Yeah.
The fact is, first of all, the idea of online came in from the fact that there is an optimization possible there. We were clear that even in online, we could deliver the same outcome, the same customer experience or same customer happiness, actually a little bit more if we go on online. So I told you, right, in large classroom, we had hardly anyone asking questions. So if you don't even ask questions, why would you spend time in traffic coming all the way here? I would rather give you a tab and you can see the videos, right? So fundamentally, it's about making the customer the engagement and the outcome more better. It was never about changing the customer. It is actually about the same customer. We understood that TG much better, as a result of which we were able to transition from a offline to online mode. So it was not change in customer. Change in customer actually occurred when I moved from the K-12 market to the higher ed market. But there again, it is, I've spent enough years and seen the transition of a lot of our kids who are in K-12 moving all the way to working professional, and saw how it was also transitioning and how the consumer behavior was changing. Hence, yes, although it was a change market, it was not much of a problem to figure it out quickly. Does that answer the question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Devanshu.
So very good morning to you. It
Morning.
was a great, insightful talk on how the journey of Byju's happened and how now you are building upgrade. So, sir, I have two questions. Number one is that the challenge there is a challenge in scaling a business, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
That Byju's, you could scale it. It was easy to scale. There was a higher margin, but then the actual customer need, the need of the students, because of the motivation factor, as you mentioned, was not being able to meet. So at that level, what do you think would be a way to descale and kind of modify your product? How do you pivot correctly in such a case? So can you please shed some light on that?
Yeah, I mean, interesting question. So pivoting is a very favored word in the startup ecosystem. There are people who keep pivoting. There are companies whose business model itself have become pivot. Yeah. Uh, the point, right? See, as I told you, right? I did not pivot the business model of Byju's. Byju's continued to focus on K12. It was more of a personal decision for me because I thought that that's not where the future of online learning is. I think online learning requires a lot of self motivation, and as a result of which, it doesn't work that well for kids, right? So, but then if you're asking me what's the if the I mean if I'll change the question a bit and say that if the question is if I'm a startup owner, how do we know how when do I know is the right time to pivot? Right? This if I make the question this, then I will answer it like this. If with my product I am not able to satisfy the 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 verbalized and the non-verbalized need of the customer, then I will pivot. Now, what is the verbalized need? Verbalized need is very easy, right? They will tell you they want this and we make this thing. But lot of customers don't tell you clearly what they want because they themselves are not clear about it. So you need to figure it out by looking closely at what happens in their life normally. A student, at least when we started Byju's, most of the students were infatuated with the idea of owning a personal tab. And as a result of which the business zoomed, right? But fundamentally, if you look at that kid's life, right, he's finally asked a question by his parent at the end of the year or end of the term, saying that why haven't your marks improved? I've spent tens of thousands of rupees on you. The student will never be bothered to tell you that when he or she buys the product. But next year, when it comes to buying the next year product, the parent will definitely say, I will not invest because even after investing so much of money, you have been only wasting it. That is the unset demand of the student, which you require to solve as an entrepreneur. So in my view, if you're not solving these in a long-term basis, you should pivot it out. I don't believe in the pivots companies are doing because they see competition as they see it is doing well. I'm talking about somebody like Grofers. I mean, Grofers in their existence of 3 years would have pivoted 5 times. I don't honestly think that you can build businesses like that. I believe that the pivot decisions or a decision to make your product should come from only one individual or one stakeholder. That is your customer. You can't say, "Oh, I am pivoting because my competitor who have been doing the things differently is now able to deliver for 10 minutes, so I will also deliver for 10 minutes." That's not your core competency. Maybe something else is. You need to figure out what it is. And you need to figure out which network will pay you money, will allow you to monetize that competency. So that's how I would see this problem.
Thank you for answering that. And if I may go ahead with my second question.
Yeah, I think yes. I mean, like, I hope the organizers don't have any problem. Please go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, secondly, one other thing that you talked about was the outcome that you get for a customer. And so when you compare, say, Byju's and Upgrad, for Byju's, it would be how well are the students in K-12, how well are the students performing in their, in their school assessments. While in case of upgrade, the outcome would be whether the, whether the person is getting employed or getting better job
Yeah,
opportunity,
that's right. That's
able
right.
to change, field, so on and so forth. So do you think that, like you said, that you did get a good outcome for upgrade uh, because of this, this thing that probably it was not so possible for, in the case of, say, Byju's, it wasn't possible.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the reason for that?
So the reason, as I told you, right, I think I mentioned it. See, when it comes to education, right, a lot depends on the student. So we teachers say that education is 50% teaching and 50% learning. The student has to be doing half of it with his or her commitment. But when it comes to online learning, it becomes 70% learning and 30% teaching, because the self motivation should come from the person. What I've observed is that the students, especially the kids in K-12, right, don't really have the self motivation. And if they have the self motivation, they don't need any product. They can get all the things for free and learn themselves. That's a so it's a the value add a teacher brings in classroom, at least in K-12 for a kid, is very, very important. And hence the outcomes was not possible to be driven. But once it comes to more matured individuals, right, who anyway identifies that if I need to go ahead in life, I need someone to give me a structured curriculum. I need someone to give me those tools so that I don't need to spend my time researching things. It's very clear what that person wants. So, for instance, when a person comes to upgrade, right, we initially ask them what's the outcome you're looking at. Typically, if I bucket it out, all the outcomes people ask for, it comes in three categories. Number one, a career transition. That is, I am in this field, I want to move to this field because now Java is out of date. And if I move into data science, I'll get a better package. Number two, career acceleration. That is, I am in a company, I don't think my growth is great. So, can you help me get this managerial skill set so that I can move into a TL role? And number three, most common, is professional confidence. I have a job, but I don't think I am finding myself important in this company. How do I build the skill set so that I will be seen as a top performer? I mean, when I took over this responsibility, I thought that the most common will be career transition or career accession, but it is not. Most of the people are happy where they are, but they want more importance. They want to feel happy by getting the respect of the colleagues, and for which they are ready to invest in their skill set. So if you see that customer, right, like you and me, a working professional or someone who is going through college, he's very clear what he wants. And hence his commitment to learning is very, very high. So on our interface also, we tell them to put it down. And then we break it down based on that outcome they have put and the diagnostic test they have done, saying that to reach here, you have these skill sets. These skill sets are this level. By the end of this course, we will take it to these levels. And then we show them a chart weekly on how it is moving with various interventions. So you can see two clear things, right? One, here the customer is super clear what do they want, and they're ready to invest their motivation, are self-motivated to do it. That solves your problem halfway, right? See, whether we accept it or not, right? In online, the aspect of control is very, very less. And hence you need people who are ready to have that kind of maturity. And which is the reason why I think that online education is more and more going to be relevant in the higher ed space and not really in the young population. Understand that? Right, Devanshu? Yeah.
Yes, sir, understood. So I think that is a fundamental challenge that the customer segment only poses, which
That's
makes
right.
it more harder for Byju's to probably
That's right.
do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
No,
Thank
they
you.
are solving it through hybrid. I think Akash acquisition was in that direction. And now if you look at it, companies, majority of the revenue comes from the hybrid model. So I think that model is very clear and that's how it is going to, going to grow. Yeah. Lalit, you want to go next?
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. Good morning, sir. My question was on the same line as that of the Devanshu regarding scalability. So you have mentioned that it is a problem that to not to be able to create a sustainable system where you can have a fixed price and everything regarding a particular course. So why don't companies or initiatives try to tie up with government? Like government is also initiating some of the platforms like e-Siksha, and then there's a Diksha process, then Make in India process where government is trying to provide the certification to the people
Yeah.
who can get the. So why can't companies like this can actually have a small tie-up with the government so that they can actually increase the scalability? Like I've always seen this trend in the market since 2016 when we are promoting digital payment. So there was a phase with payment Paytm when we are promoting Paytm, and also during the pandemic, instead of like promoting the foreign vaccine companies, we're actually promoting Serum Institute of India and Bharat Biotech
Yeah.
for the vaccination. So,
Yeah.
is there any possibility or is there any problem in the tie-up with the government regarding all this
So
process?
we do that. We do that. The tie-up is there. So, for instance, most of these platforms which the government has built was not built by the government. It was built by some of us. So, for instance, the Startup India app, where you can take courses, it's actually upgrade app. It is the courses are done by us. So that collaboration is there. But I think one big thing which has happened and the way the collaboration is growing is the new education policy, where government has come in clearly saying that this is the new education policy, and now you can take degrees online. Of course, not engineering ones, which requires lab facilities, but all the others can be done online. I think that's the right kind of collaboration possible, because once you come into execution, right? See, execution requires a lot of rigor and a lot of what should I say? I mean, monetization driven ideas. Otherwise, the platforms will not achieve the kind of what should I say, efficiency which it needs to achieve. For instance, right? See, think about the. I mean, you took the example of the UPI payment thing. The reason why UPI has become so popular is also because all the startup, I mean, the bigger guys who could invest in it, picked it up, right? See, Phone Pay, Google Pay had not invested in UPI, and if it was only Beam, it would have never reached this stage. It reached the ubiquitousness because there was capital to be invested, and marketing made it ubiquitous everywhere. Of course, the government provided with the framework. And this happened in spite of the fact that everyone knew that nobody can make any money in UPI, because there is a maximum cap the RBI has put in it. So I think that's how a ideal partnership should be in India. I think the way government should do is the government should make the policies and should enable us so that startup capital comes in it and the execution gets taken care by that. And that's exactly that what is happening in education. Although education is much more complex because there are multiple regulators. There is still lack of clarity on what the regulator is supposed to do. So that's a constant battle. But I think everything is for good. If most of the things get solved now and it's clear, it'll be great for future.
Thank you, sir. That answers my question.
Thanks. Venkat, do you want to go next?
Yes, sir. Very good morning.
Fine.
So you mentioned that in the initial stage of the startup, it's important for planning to how to scale up to the future. So what aspects do you look for while building building your team to achieve those plans?
Yeah. So first of all, I have always seen this idea as a global idea. Maybe it is not applicable in every single market, but I am very clear that there is a microcosm or a subsection in every market where this becomes a very relevant idea. So even when Byju's started marketing in US or Upgrade started marketing in US, we were clear that there will be a subsegment of the audience who will get attracted to us, right? And that's where the strength will be. Then we can decide that, okay, we have made a brand with this audience. Now, can I use them as the ambassador and try to become larger on that? So one part you have to always be clear is that, are you able to build models which will be able to take care of, let's say, 100 million people coming in together and learning? Will you be able to have a system which will sustain that? Will be able to have a system which will engage them? And will you be able to have a system where the cost doesn't linearly increase when compared to the number of users, right? And the biggest, and you rightly said, right, the biggest investment you can make for in building that kind of model is in people. Okay, it's very, very important on what's the kind of people you will bring in into the company early on. Now, there are two uh, lines of thought here, right? One is people where they believe that you get in young guys, youngsters, okay, when the company is young, and invest in them so that they grow and scale along with the company, right? And they become the future leaders. And then there is a second line of thought, the typical VC line of thought. That is, there are some people who can do scaling from 0 to 1, and 1 to n requires a different set of people, right? So see, both works. I mean, like there are examples like Facebook where or Google or Facebook where the first line of thought worked, and there are multiple other companies where the second line of thought works. Personally, I am a believer of the first line of thought. Okay, I think individuals, if you are selecting them well, will be able to scale very, very well. So what I do is that see, I am a believer that whatever you build, right, you have to be very close to the customer. So I have this practice of selling the product before even you complete the product, and then continuously getting the feedback to improve it so that you finally end up doing it. Hence, all my initial recruitment has always been in sales. So if you look at the way I build Byju's, right? When I started off, there were 9 of these guys who started with me calling the customer, telling them about our product and selling it, like the most basic or the most entry level role. So by the time we became that $10 billion company, these guys, these 9 guys were handling all of the business for the Byju's learning app. These 9 guys were handling large territories across the country and was handling the entire business. Now, even after I left also, what the company has continued investing on them, and they have moved into various divisions and are leaders there. I think that is an approach which I will always bet on. I would rather get in people with the right ambition, with the right attitude, and invest on it. Yes, and this requires investment, right? This requires someone to keep quietly track how well these guys are scaling, and then invest in helping them build that skill. This could be training, this could be coaching, this could be continuously giving them the feedback, telling them which direction they should focus their energy on, so on and so forth. Right? So that's how I would see it. I mean, I need not be the typical answer you get, but this is how I have always built organizations.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Vinder, you want to go next?
Yeah, hi sir. My question is like at the end of every successful execution, there are always some lesson learned.
Yes.
So since you've been associated with 2 unicorns, so is there anything which you feel that you would have done differently, like when you were first starting out?
See, I think when I think there is a change to be done, I do it quickly. Okay, and that is the reason why I moved from Byju's to Upgrade when I saw that this was not really giving a long-term outcome or a long-term sustainability in the system. But if you ask me, one thing differently, what I would have done if I was starting Byju's today is the focus on tech. So we never really understood tech to that level. I mean, pretty much I was the only person with some tech understanding or tech experience in the company at that stage. So I would, the only thing I would have done differently would be to get 1 or 2 smart engineers who could have been one of them could have been the co-founder of the company, because that would have helped us build the tech system in a very, very scalable manner. We had to rebuild the tech system multiple times because we did not think about doing it better. So in the current way of doing things, especially when you're building tech-focused startups, it would be really helpful if you have a really good engineer as your co-founder, because that guy will then get you that aspect of thought process which you don't have competency as a business person. So that's the only thing differently I would have done. In Upgrade, I am trying to do that. Yeah, Naman, you want to go next?
Sir, good morning, sir. So what I wanted to know that within this edtech industry, when can we see there would be a saturation, or has it arrived now? Or what could be the new growth opportunities for new players who are aspiring to explore in this industry?
Yeah, so Naman, I don't really think saturation can come in. Okay, let's only talk about the K-12 market. We are talking about 250 million school-going students, right? And if you take all the paid customers of Byju's, that number is not even 2.5 million. Okay, so it's after so much of investment, so many years, it's barely scratching the surface. It's like less than 1% of the market, right? But why is the saturation coming in? I would say it is the price point. A large part of, so when you are selling a product at 25,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees, when 1 year of your formal education on an average, even in a good CBSE school today is 15,000 rupees, basically pushes you out of the larger markets in play. So I think the problem today is the kind of products we have built, which would be interesting for everyone. And a bigger challenge is that how do we ensure that this 250 million students is open to monetization? A lot of people tried doing it, right? I mean, Doubtnut tried doing it. They still don't have a business model. Or Khan Academy tried doing it. They are also still don't have a business model which is working in India because schools obviously don't pay for it. So I don't really think there is saturation. What is getting saturated is the business models. It will require a very different business model now to make a ubiquitous product, which will be interesting for every student in this country. And that I think will be the real big differentiator.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay, I think Jay Prakash has a question. Jay Prakash, you want to go next?
Yeah. And just with the interest of time, we can just take only one question. So, Kranti, you can just send us the question. We can share with Arjun.
Sure. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. So
Hi.
I've been hearing through the whole set of discussions. Sir, one thing that you said that struck me was whenever you plan up with a startup, all that the entrepreneurs can initially think of is to establish a customer base and to establish the idea of their business model to the customers who are relevant at that time. But you said it's very important to plan for scaling up the business, which for an entrepreneur in 1-2 years might be very hazy in the process. So how do you think that will be possible while one starts up? I understand the vision though, but I just doubt the practicality of it. So.
Not really, Prakash. It will not be hazy at all. An entrepreneur with the right idea will be absolutely clear on the size of the market. Will be always like that. So, for instance, right, when think about a Mark Zuckerberg building Facebook, he built it for Harvard. But do you think that that is how he built a website? So, right, he always knew that this is going to be an open registration one day. So it doesn't really require you to it only requires you to think big. And that I think is the DNA of a successful entrepreneur. So recently I was talking to someone and he was saying that I think it was an investor. He was saying that the only problem I have today is how do I inject the growth DNA into these companies? These entrepreneurs are so comfortable and happy stuck in this small TG which they are working with. How do I tell them that this is not the end of it and there is much more to be given? So I think that is the entrepreneur's DNA, what you call as the growth DNA. And it is not very tough to think at that level. All you need to do is thinking. And if you think that you're not able to do it, get a mentor who will force you to think in that. Okay, I hope I answered the question.
Yes, sir, that completely answers my question. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, sir, for taking us through the journey of Byju's and Upgrade. It was a very insightful session, and students are definitely going to cherish the knowledge gained from you. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks so much. Sure.
So we have shared one link with you. Can you just...
I'll do that. Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead and have a great session. The event today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Mr. Amit Kumar Agarwal. He is the founder and CEO of NoBroker.com. NoBroker is India's first real estate unicorn startup with its disruptive, tech-based, capital-efficient business model. Over the years, NoBroker has grown and diversified its business by solving challenges for its clients. Mr. Agarwal has years of rich expertise in management consulting and strategy. He is an alumnus of IIT Kanpur and IIM Ahmedabad. Over to you, sir. Uh, Mr. Amit will be joining in a couple of minutes. We'll wait for him.
What phone? No idea. Is he joined? This is the song. Pero pueden que como no que song trigger.
can't tell one from the other. I find you or you find me. There was a time before we were born. If someone asks, this is where I'll be, where I'll be. We're drifting it out. Singing to my love. Out of all those kinds of people, you got a face with a view. I'm just another looking for a home and share the same space for a minute or two. And your love me till my heart stops. Love me till I'm dead. I stand right up, I see through you. Cover up the blank spots, hit me on the head. I got
Everyone, thank you so much for your patience. Our next speaker will join shortly.
Go to that. Go to that room. He's right. Which thing mute है? Hey, Shubham is on mute. Shubham is on mute.
Shubham, I guess you are on mute.
Thanks, Soumya. Yeah. Our next speaker is Mr. Amit Kumar Agarwal. He is the founder and CEO of NewBroker.com. NewBroker is India's first real estate unicorn startup with its disruptive, tech-based, capital-efficient business model. Over the years, NewBroker has grown and diversified its business by solving challenges for its clients. Mr. Agarwal has rich experience in management consulting and strategy. He is an alumnus of IIT Kanpur and IIM Ahmedabad. Over to you, sir.
Hello. So good to see lots of people joining. Guys, my objective is to quickly talk about my journey. I am basically also and I'm alumnus like you. So my objective is to quickly talk about my journey and then basically open it for questions. So my main objective coming today is to basically help in any way that I can in case any one of you want to start a startup or any one of you want to join a startup. So if there is any question that I can answer, I would basically love doing that. So that's my key objective. I will just talk about quickly No Broker journey, and then I leave it open for the questions that you might have. So guys, I'm basically, as just introduced very kindly, I am engineer from IIT Kanpur and MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. I was working in, so like every other IIM graduate who basically chases management consulting or finance jobs because they're well paying primarily. I basically also followed the same suit, and luckily I loved management consulting. So I was basically there for almost a decade, and so I liked it a lot. And then I was in banking and financial services, and then I joined ANZ Bank, which was the Australian New Zealand bank, paying pretty well. And it's a foreign bank situated in Bombay. And after a management consulting stint, which is much more stressful and much more happening, then you feel working in an industry is basically much laid back. And I started realizing that that this phase in which you start earning well and not huge amount of pressure is a very risky situation, because it puts you in a huge amount of comfort, and that is very then it's very difficult to basically do something which is innovative, which is great for your career. So I thought that I would want to take a risk, and then me and my college mates which is Akhil and Saurav, we decided that we want to do something. So that was the trigger point. When I started No Broker along with my friends, it was a very bad time to start because we were expecting our kid, and she wanted to take a break. But me doing a startup meant that she can't take a break and she would have to continue working because somebody had to earn money. And as it happens that the more you work, you end up collating mortgage and this EMI, that EMI, and increasing your expenses. And that's the same thing which basically happened with us also. But nevertheless, I left my job and we bootstrapped for almost a year. Uh, it was pretty difficult in the start because real estate was and is a very, very competitive field. And I'm not sure how many of you remember, but 5, 6 years back, 9, 10 acres, Magic Bricks, Common Floor, Housing.com, Grab House, such amazing companies were there, Quicker, and then Nestaway also came along. So it was a very, very competitive field, and somebody starting afresh and trying to compete with these large companies was difficult as per investors. And I'm not sure how many of you know about No Broker, but the concept is very simple, that we connect owners and tenants and buyers and sellers of properties directly with each other without any broker in between. So our hypothesis is that if you can send a Facebook request to anybody in the world, why should you have to pay a broker thousands and lakhs of rupees for buying or renting a property? Why can't you do it directly? So that was our going hypothesis. The problem as per investor was that we did not copy this idea from anywhere in US or China, which we thought was a good thing, but we discovered it is not a good thing because investors basically wanted some surety that the idea will work. And we said, see, we have not copied it from US or China, but we think that as far as we Indians are concerned, we would really want to say brokerage because the service is bad and the charges are very high, and so on and so forth. So we struggled for funding for almost a year. And then Housing.com basically got a huge amount of funding, which spooked the rest of the investors who were even partly interested. And somehow then we were able to get 18 crores from SAF Partners, $3 million. And then we basically opened our first office and started building business. C2C platform is basically customer to customer. So for example, if you have a sweet shop, then it is B2C. You are the business and you are selling to customer. Or if you are a brokerage classified, that's a B2C because one side is broker, other side is customer. When you do C2C, which is what we were doing, it's much more difficult because you need to get a house on the same road or the same BHK for the same price that today a tenant is looking for or a buyer is looking for. You can't be early, you can't be late. It has to match exactly. And unless you are large, how can you match? When you are small, you will get one house in one road, you will get another house in another road. So how do you match? So hence, making C2C business is much more difficult. But yes, once you make it, then it is very strong and the network effect becomes bigger. So we basically kept on building business, and then Housing.com imploded despite very good founder and so on. Somehow things didn't work out, and which basically so earlier we were not getting funds because Housing had raised huge amount of funds. Then we were not getting funds because Housing.com was not doing well, and somehow people were negative on real estate. So we somehow survived. We kept our expenses low, and we, with the help of our Japanese investor, we tried to find investments from South Korea, Japan, Singapore, whichever small investors we could get our hands to. And thankfully, with their help, we kept on chugging along. And as basically, so our approach always had been not to copy competition, not to copy anybody else, but just focus on business, on customer, one customer every moment, and let's try to service the customer to the best of our ability. So we kept on doing, and as we became bigger and bigger, and as customers' appreciation, I think, flowed, then more people noticed us. We were earlier into real estate alone. Then we ventured into painting, cleaning, packers and movers, home interiors, home loans. Now we basically provide all of those services. And then Tiger Global and General Atlantic also basically funded us. So from a company which basically had 1,000 customers a month, Today we add 5 lakh new customers per year. Our cumulative customer base is 1.6 crores. Uh, we have an employee strength of around 3,000 across the country. We have raised 3,500 crores of investment. And we are not only number one in real estate pan India, but we are also say number one in packers and movers across the country. So guys, basically this has been the past few year journey, and I just want to give a quick summary of it. And what I'm looking forward is any question that you are genuinely interested in knowing. No need to ask any good questions that we typically ask the interviewer or such. Please ask any question which really matters to you, anything which you want to know about startup. Genuinely, I'll be really happy spending Sunday morning if I'm able to help somebody, a fellow IIM alumnus.
Sir, we have Ankit raised his hand.
Sure.
Ankit, you can go ahead.
Good morning, sir. So I had one question. I have been using all these websites that you mentioned, Magic Breaks. I've also used No Brokers a lot of time, and I've experienced one thing that a lot of sellers on the platform are the agents itself, the agents that used to the brokers, basically the offline brokers itself. So I was wondering, how are you tackling this problem, because that goes against uh, the sole motive of the platform, right?
No, it's not possible. If you have encountered any broker on no broker platform, that would be one of the rarest thing ever possible. Most probably, what has happened is that anybody whom you contacted on any other platform, they have sold the phone number to other brokers whom you have called. If you have had any experience of clicking on any no broker owner contact number and getting a broker, please email it to me immediately, and I will check it and tell you out. I handle customer complaints, praises every day. In the past 8 years, I think I would have, from 1.6 crore registered customers, we would have perhaps missed 100 brokers. That's it. So our catch rate would be 99.99%.
So, sir, how are you managing that? Basically, by reporting and all?
So that's our secret sauce. I hope you don't want us to tell you in a public forum. But what basically we do is that we have hundreds of measures that we do algorithmically. And Indian brokers are very jugadu, right? So they basically are happy to change phone numbers, email addresses, basic details to make sure that they're able to fool. But we have a AI based algorithm which is extremely sharp. Some 30-40 data points go into it, and so that is something which is our moat.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes, you can go.
Good morning, sir. Sir, I have been not well versed with this type of industry, but I've been hearing that over the last 2 to 3 years, due to COVID and other reasons, this industry has not been progressing that well. So, could you I wanted to know that if there is no broker fees, then what is the revenue model for nobroker.com? If you could tell a bit about that.
Fortunately or unfortunately, COVID has increased our business a lot. Because people are now preferring much more digital medium. They want to save much more money, and they wouldn't want to prefer a physical visit to a broker's office. So we have tripled our revenue from pre-COVID to today, and we have doubled our employee strength from pre-COVID to today. So we have been growing pretty aggressively, and we have raised two rounds of funds during the COVID times. So from business perspective, things have been good with us. And what was the other question? Sorry.
So without broker fees, what is the main revenue model?
Sure. So what we do is that our default is free. So you can search for a property, you can sell your property free of cost on no broker. But for value-added services, you want a phone relationship manager, you want your property at the top slot, on the platform, we charge. And of course, we have a very large painting business, cleaning business, packers, movers business, home loan, home interior, furniture rental business that we do with our vendor partners.
Sir, can I add a follow-up question? Like I wanted something else. Sir, because sir, see, if someone, hello, am I audible, sir?
Sorry, can you repeat it? I missed it.
Yeah, sorry. So I was asking that because if someone sells a house or buys a house, then for many years he won't visit that website again. So the customer acquisition cost might be really high for such kind of businesses.
No, because our expenses are also very low. We are like Facebook, right? So we don't own the content, we don't post, we don't consume the content. So neither do we post vacation photos, nor do we press like on it. So neither do we own the homes, nor do we contact those property owners. So our cost base is pretty low, and consumers do buy and sell perhaps every 10 years. They do rental every 1.5 years. They do home services, which is cleaning and AC repair and so on, so every 6 months. They do financial services, which we are very large in, which is rent payment through credit card every month. So the customer keeps on coming back, and the great thing about a big network effect is that the every month the customers from say March 2015 are also coming. So and the business model is such that we are able to make money from the customer the first time they come on a consolidated basis. So it's good enough for us.
Lalit, you can go.
Good morning, sir. So my question was that the real estate has always been like a most unorganized sector, and no broker being the first real estate unicorn who has tried to like organize this real estate sector. So what were the challenges that were faced in this transformation of unorganized to organized online real estate platform?
See, I think whenever you start something new, which is almost always when you are starting a startup, you will try to solve a problem in a new way, right? So of course you are doing something which has not been done by anyone else before. And the one challenge in business like us was to have this C2C, get a customer on the same road on both sides. And second was that many of the brokers are half goons, and they are able to extract money from you post the deal, right? So it is not possible for you that you get a deal from the broker and then you refuse him to pay. He will make sure that he gets money from you. But in our case, we can't even request you because we are physically not there, and everything is digital. So we had to basically develop a model in which we charge money upfront from the customer. So we say that, hey, we are going to get you a house. We may or may not be able to get a house for you, but we are going to try, and we would want say 2,000 rupees, 3,000 rupees. That's a very difficult proposition because why would somebody pay you upfront? And nobody in the world in real estate pays upfront. We are the only company in the world who was able to charge customers upfront because we have been able to close so many deals in the past so many years that customers trust us.
Thank you, sir. That answers my question.
Yeah.
Jilmil, you can go next.
Good morning, sir. So I would like to know what advice you have for someone who's starting a business right after pursuing an MBA, and how a degree from IIM would help me in that.
पहले तो आप बताइए लोन एजुकेशन लोन कितना है आपका?
काफी है, sir.
So the first thing is that you basically need to take care of the EMI of the education loan. So if you want to start something of your own, first thing would be don't get impressed by founders like me who are coming and having this session. You need to be much more practical. I would suggest that if you want to start your business of your own for the next 1 year, you need to make sure that you have the finances sorted out. So it is okay if you ask your friends, your family, but make sure that for the next 1 year, you can pay your education loan EMI, you can take care of expenses, and you can put some money in your own business, because that's something which is important. From a psychological point of view, remember that all your friends are going to congratulate you and say, hey, how brave you are for leaving the placement. But they'll stop calling after that because then finally they are busy with their lives and you are alone. So psychologically, you should be prepared that you might be comparing your zero salary with their good salaries. And you should be psychologically much more prepared with this. But what I can tell you is that running a successful startup is the best job in the entire world. There is nothing which is much more enjoyable, much more satisfying than being your own boss and creating something big. So there is no doubt about it. As far as IM is concerned, the brand of IM basically ensures कि जिंदगी भर रोटी का इंजाम हो गया आपका मतलब the brand of IM is so strong. Any campus, be it Udaipur, be it Ahmedabad, any campus, the fact that you guys are IM students and you are going to come out as a IM postgraduate is going to ensure that you get a job for the next 20, 30, 40 years. Always. No matter what startup, what risk you have taken, you'll always get a job. It might be 1 lakh more, 1 lakh less, but you will always get a job. And what I often basically say is that imagine about thinking about some other guy or girl doing MBA or engineering from an unknown college. How difficult it is for him or her to really start something of his own, because it's very little they have to fall back to. They don't have a degree that they can fall back to and get a job in the market quickly, but you have. So if after having an IM degree, if we are not able to take a risk, then who can? Who can take the risk in the world? If after IM degree, if we are unable to take the risk. And I'm basically very happy because even when I graduated, IM became good in just making all of us managers. IM system and this day zero, day one has become very good in making us do the work for someone else. But if we are the brightest in the country, if we have cleared CAT, shouldn't we be giving employment? Shouldn't we be our own boss? But somehow I'm saying you need to think differently. Some of the system is much more about day zero, day one. Anyway, 50% of you are going to change job after a year. So half of my batch change jobs. And the companies who are trying to act very pricey at day zero, they are not at all pricey when you apply to them outside after a year. So they don't come up with any quota. I hope I answered your question.
You did, sir. Thank you.
Akash, you can ask your questions.
Good morning, sir.
Akash, your voice is not audible.
Hello.
Yes, now it is.
Good morning, sir. Sir, my question is very specific. No Broker is a very great platform to buy and sell properties. Sir, it's in its initial phase. You have also developed an application or maybe web portal to access this. So, what thing we should keep in mind before developing this type of platform in digital way?
I don't think the fact that you are part of IM, I think you are intelligent enough. I really doubt if I can add something to you. You can look at all the good platforms that you admire and basically learn from them. And I think the best, otherwise, the learning is from your fellow students. You can just ask them as to whatever you are making as a consumer, does it seem intuitive to them? Does it seem simple to them? So what is the biggest formula for a good product? That customer should like it. Who cares if your professor doesn't like it or not? Finally, the thing is consumer. Consumer is the boss. If he likes it, that's it. So just use that principle. And so I would say take nobody else's feedback except that of a customer.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So Ayush, you can go ahead.
Sir, I want to ask you regarding, like, sir, you're working in a real estate, but right now people are investing more and more in market. But I think for a small investor, the scope of investment in real estate is still low. Like, if you want to buy a house, you can buy it, but if you want to invest in a project, then it is not possible right now, I think. Do you think, suppose there can be a possibility like a project is coming up, so I invest some chunk of my money in that project, and after completion of the project, then, like, as the stock market works, that can happen, or there can be a challenge in that?
No, so I basically agree with you in fact, doesn't matter whether I run a real estate company. I'm a very strong believer in equity market, in stock markets, and I think that as individuals we should be investing much more money in stock market than we do in real estate. I think we are, as Indians, we are over focused on real estate and gold. So we should do less of real estate and more of equity market. And that would be my advice. And of course, as far as your question is concerned regarding the smaller ticket size, then I think there are many companies which have come up now which are about fractional ownership. So you basically, so there's a mall in which there's a shop, and the shop costs say 5 crores. And what basically they do is they get together 20 people who put 25 lakhs each, and they own 1/20th of the shop. They have shares which are distributed. They have legal rights. They get the rental amount distributed to them every quarter. And after 5 years or 7 years, they can, as a group, decide to, on a majority basis, decide to sell it. In case one of them want to exit, then they can sell their shares to a new incoming investor. So it's a very good model based on commercial properties. You should check it out.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ayush. So Devansh, you can go now.
Very good morning to you. My question is more related to your journey. How is that? How has it been? You said that you had worked in management consulting earlier, prior to starting No Broker. So do you think that your experience and stint at management consulting that helped you become successful in your startup journey? Would you suggest such a path to take for achieving success? Of course, there's no guarantee, but then increasing your probability of success.
Let me flip the question this way. Many of the people used to ask me whether you should have some work experience before doing MBA or not. What do you think about it?
I believe that yes, work experience helps better understand the concepts being taught in class, because you can relate it to.
But if you don't have work experience, can't the I am topper be without work experience?
That is possible.
Yeah. So same thing in startups also. If you have worked somewhere, of course it helps because you have worked in a corporate setup. You are aware how to become a good leader. It's you need to first become a good follower of someone else. Then you know how to lead team. So doing jobs, doing different stints, of course, basically has helped me a lot, Devanshu. So there's no doubt about it. But in case your question is also that should you gain some experience before starting something of your own, I would say that the decision factor is, one is your finances, whether you are ready to start something of your own, and second is, do you have that burning desire, or it is going to take some time. If it is not there, then work somewhere else. Let it come to you naturally, because it's going to take a lot of perseverance to pursue it, because success might not come very easily. But theoretically, there are lots of successful entrepreneurs who dropped out of college, or just after college they made something and became big. And their objective was that, hey, if they keep on waiting, somebody else will do that idea, which is also true. And there are lots of people like me who have worked for many years elsewhere, and then they've started something of their own, and that has also worked till now. So, so there is no clear answer, Devanshu. Yes, work experience helps, but it is not mandatory. I hope I was able to answer your question. And anyway, yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, Karthik Mishra, you can go ahead.
Hi, sir. Nice to hear you and meet you. Finally, I've been using your app for many good amount of times, and it has really helped me. I wanted to ask you that most of us, we normally go through a broker of some sorts because we would like to avoid any scams that, take place from owners who might take a deposit or, and then it does not get refunded. Do you think you have received any such complaints that people have met owners on No Brokers? And have you played any active role in ensuring that these kind of things do not happen?
So see, the question is basically similar that when earlier there used to be some pandit or guy who used to get the marriages done. but still possible that after the marriage things don't work out and you find that the bride is bad or the groom is bad, right? Similarly, I think is a thing with financial arrangements, with arrangements like house hunting. So there's a basic etiquette which is that don't transfer any money without signing on something. And you are right in saying that many a times broker gives that sort of feeling that he's going to take care of it. But I have been personally through a situation where it was stuck and the broker was not able to do anything because he sided with one of the parties. In fact, he sided with the owner because the owner will give him future business. And tenants like me, they keep on coming and going. So brokers are not any regulated entity. It's very difficult to basically expect that they will really help you in tough time. Uh, do they give satisfaction that they will help you? Yes, they do. So in case you are worried about that, go ahead. But on our platform, we have done deals we have saved brokerage worth thousands of crores in the past 6, 7, 8 years. I think there might have been only 2 or 3 cases till now where the owner did not give back the money. But that was also the case when the tenant just transferred money without signing anywhere, without taking any document, being too eager to sign money, which I think is anyway a bad financial discipline. So apart from that, no. Even this fear of squatting that the tenant will squat, we have rarely seen. So it is much more of a fear which is rooted perhaps in our 10 years, 15 years back, much lesser now. And the law enforcement is also pretty strong. So I haven't seen in the past 7 years, but yeah, I leave it to the customers, whatever they are comfortable with.
Do you think, just a follow-up question, that if you sort of like create a particular product where you can hold a deposit and then transfer it to the owner, it would, after a deal is signed, after a contract is uploaded or something like that, do you think that would work in the betterment of this industry?
No, but owners don't ask for deposit amount without signing something. They don't.
Or even the token amount, what I mean.
But token amount also you can give after taking their KYC. There's no need to give token amount before taking. You can ask for their PAN card, Aadhaar card, and then transfer token money.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, Saurya, we seeing you can go ahead.
Good morning, sir. I have a question. I have a question that how you bring out 100% from a team, since you are a CEO and you take out the execution part of the company, how you bring out 100% from the team member, every team member. And second question is, what are your learnings till now from having an idea, implementing it, market research, funding, and scaling the business?
ये तो एक पूरा सेमेस्टर का कोर्स पूछ लिया आपने. So basically people are divided into two categories for us. One is the people whose job is towards the field, customer facing, much more manual, much more repetitive. It's very difficult to motivate such people because their job inherently is repetitive. So the objective is to make it much more fun, much more comfortable for them to do their job, make it financially very rewarding, gamify it so that there is much more fun around the job despite its repetitive nature, so that you get the kick out of more sales closures, more achievement. Second part of the team is basically people who are leading these people, and people like me, people like my juniors. So for them, the objective, my personal style, is to give huge amount of independence, crazy amount of independence, huge amount of accountability. Just let them do their work. So I'm basically one of those leaders who intervene very less because I hated my bosses when they used to micromanage me, and I loved independence and taking full responsibility. So I basically follow that style of leadership. So different functions that I mentioned, packer, mover, painting, every function has a leader, huge amount of independence, and that has worked well for me. Overall, right from the journey of fundraising from 0 to 1 and then 1 to 10, that's a long discussion. But broadly, the goalpost keeps on changing. And earlier it was more about, can I do something of my own? That hunger, and then it basically became about, can we really take it off from the ground? Then now today, the fun that I get is basically seeing us achieve new numbers and seeing my team members basically motivating me in turn. So now it is other way around. I get inspired by their passion, by their hunger to make their business large.
Thank you, sir. Shantanu, you can go ahead.
So my question is more about like what are the differences between success metrics with and I mean with broker and without broker of adding properties into our portfolio. Like most people aren't very comfortable with the online. Uh, going completely online. I mean, few people are comfortable with agents, especially in country like India. So, I mean, are there any differences in success metrics of adding properties to portfolio?
You see, there are different ways to solve a problem. Why should I assume that doing without broker is a superior method? So it's not like that. If tomorrow morning onwards, every broker in the country becomes much more customer centric and reduce their fees to more reasonable levels, then we shouldn't exist. They deserve the business. Why do we deserve the business? We are not some holy people who have the right over customers' business. And there are lots of brokers in the country who are extremely good, who are very good, who think about their customers, who have been loyal, who do not chipkowify a property or a tenant to the owner, and they really care about their owners, have been there for ages, and are well educated and are not a fly by night operator. Those brokers deserve business. They'll always get business. No broker or any tech field can never take away that business. But unfortunately, there's a large number of brokers in the country who basically do it for quick buck and charge huge amount of money. So we are behind that business. We are saying, hey, connect with the owner, tenant directly, save your money. Whoever is cheapest, fastest wins. It's a single line, right? As a consumer, why do you care whether the entity is called no broker, whether it is called broker, or whether it is called 910 acres? You don't care. You shouldn't care. What you should care is which platform can get me a property or can sell my property fastest, cheapest. And these are the two metrics that we are trying to do, apart from choice of houses, choice of tenants.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. In the interest of time, we will take only one more question. Naman, you can go now.
Thank you. Good morning, sir. Sir, you just highlighted that since you're a C2C platform and you conduct a background check, which is through a AI-based questionnaire to verify the sellers who are selling properties on your platform. So I just wanted to know that this is one of the applications of digital technology, one of very recent technology. So are there still any more use cases which nobroker.com can look out to upscale or to scale up its operations? What all new use cases could come within this industry?
I think look at you as a customer. What sort of needs do you have? Our use cases basically arrive from there. So as a customer, your use case today, in case you're a bachelor, might be how do I get home cheapest, or how do I basically get a roommate. Then next, once you do it for a couple of times, then your use case would be that I need some physical help to find a house once you have a family. Then once you have some money gathered, your use case would be that I want to buy a house. Or your use case could be that I don't have enough money, I want to buy a house with fractional partnership. Or your use case after that could be, I want to buy multiple houses. Or your use case can be for investment. Then your use case would be, can somebody manage my property? Or that when I'm shifting properties, can somebody paint for it? How do I take a home loan for it? Who will do the legal documentation? I don't even know a lawyer. What about rental agreement? How can I ensure that and that not any owner tricks me? How can I make sure that the tenant doesn't squat my property? How can I make sure that I get home loan, which has the lowest interest rate, but is also from a PSU or from a private sector bank? So just look at the use cases that you have on an ongoing basis, right? You want to do a inspection of your property when a tenant is living every few months because you want to know whether the property is being kept good or not. So the use cases which come from customers, we are behind all those use cases, every such opportunity, and that's how we basically proceed. So we don't have any audacity to say that we are going to come up with any use case. We just say कि customer को क्या चाहिए वो copy करते रहो. तो हम लोग we are very shameless in terms of hearing what customers are saying. So we are not one of those founders कि हमें पता है क्या करना है तो हम बताएंगे और फिर customer ले लेगा. We just hear what customers are saying. So we just listen to customer phone calls. Customer बोल रहा है कि मुझे commercial shops को rent करना है तो हम लोग commercial start कर देते हैं. If customer say कि आप land क्यों नहीं कर रहे हो, property land क्यों नहीं कर रहे हो, why are you doing only houses, we'll do land. So we are extremely flexible. We just go with what customer is asking. That's our approach. Just shamelessly listen to customer every day and copy from what customer is saying.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think within the interest of time, we are not able to take up any more questions. We would like to thank Amit sir for taking out his time for an address to the community and answering the questions. We really hope that these insights are going to be implemented in our future, and we look forward to implementing them. Thank you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much for having me. I really hope that I've been able to add some value on a Sunday morning. And thank you all of you for coming. I'm not sure whether it was made mandatory or not, but anyway, happy to see lots of faces. My only one-line submission would be, guys, that don't over worry about jobs and day zero, day one, because I used to worry just like everybody else. It actually, if you zoom out 5 years, it doesn't matter. It matters like crazy when you are studying and when you are in IIM, but it doesn't matter. You will see lots of people who are not so remarkable doing remarkable things. I would say, average in terms of grade points when I was in IIM Ahmedabad. It purely doesn't matter. Don't over focus on grades. Don't over focus on jobs. Remember, the degree of IIM is what you will carry for your life, and it's a huge asset. And if you can use this asset to do something of your own, to do a startup, then you have really used this asset. So that's it. Thank you guys.
Thank you, sir. Sir, we request you to. Okay. Oh, hello everyone. I'm Soumya Purwar from Team Saksham. So we had quite a good time listening to founders' side of startup ecosystem. But ever wondered what a day looks like in life of a venture capitalist? So introducing our next speaker, Mr. Pranay Yadav, an investor at Excel. So Excel is a global venture capital firm with over 35 years of investing history across technology-first companies like Facebook, Slack, Dropbox, Spotify, Atlassian, Flipkart, etc. Excel's India-focused fund has been operational for over a decade and has been instrumental in shaping the Indian startup ecosystem with first institutional investments into several category-forming companies like Flipkart, CureFit, Swiggy, Urban Company, Freshworks, etc. Pranay is on the early stage investment team at Excel, focusing on SaaS and B2B. He is also actively involved in early stage portfolio companies, pre-seed up to Series A, as well as with growth startup portfolio companies like Charsby, Zenoti, CareStack, and Facilio. His extensive academic background and great experience in consulting and investment banking will add value to the early ventures and will bring a fresh perspective to our eSummit 22. Please join me in welcoming him. Over to you, Pranay.
Thank you, Soumya, for the overly, elaborately written bio. Thank you so much. I can't share this screen. Can you check that?
Can you please check now?
Yeah, no sound. Let me know if you guys can see the screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So, slight change of agenda. You guys have been hearing a lot of great founders since the morning. And it's time to listen to somebody far less interesting, venture capitalist. And so today, like Soumya mentioned, I'm not going to cover a day in the life of VC. Instead, I plan to cover, the topic, all you need to know about venture capital. And, it's going to be a 30, 35 minutes kind of conversation. So, please be with me till the end of it. So without further ado, let me start. So let me start with who I am. So I'm a VC at Axel. I write emails at Axel. I used to do PowerPoint during my time as a consultant at Clinton Health Access Initiative. Before that, I used to do Excel at Nomura, the Japanese investment bank. And prior to that, I used to write code at IIT Kharagpur, where I studied my undergrad. So as you see, I do all sorts of emails and PowerPoints and Excels and coding stuff. So that's me. That's my background. A little bit about Axel. So Axel has been investing for over 30 years globally. We have made around 300 plus investments. That's actually old now. We have around 500 plus investments now. We have had over 150 plus mergers and sales globally and 125 plus public offerings. Some of the companies that you might recognize from this sheet globally are Facebook, Dropbox, Flipkart, Segment, Spotify, Slack, Atlassian, and a bunch of them. Talking about the India fund where I work, so we have made investments in, again, around 150 companies. And of the ones, the notable ones are here. Flipkart, Freshworks, Swiggy, Urban Company, Vedantu, Blackbuck, Myntra, and all of them. So that's a bit about Axel, and that's a bit about Axel India. Coming to the agenda, so I'm going to cover these things today. I'm going to cover what is venture capital, how does venture capital work, the underneath of it, what are the economics behind venture capital, and why why VCs, why VC works as a business, and why should you or should you not consider a career in venture capital. So that's all going to be the topic for today. What I'm definitely not going to cover today, and which I often get asked a lot, is how to get into venture capital. That's a topic for later. Any fundraising advice? So I heard a lot of people ask Amit from No Broker about fundraising. Unfortunately, I'm not going to cover that today because it needs a half an hour of its own time. I am not going to talk about how VCs evaluate companies in this conversation, and also whether we should choose between venture capital and entrepreneurship. These are all right questions to ask, but unfortunately, because of lack of time, I won't be able to cover them. Before I start, I want to start with a disclaimer, as I always do. So again, this is oversimplified view of venture capital. Please don't quote me outside that this is what this person said. It's oversimplified, and it's for the purpose of this discussion. I have no intent of dissuading or persuading anyone towards a career in venture capital. It's merely informing you about what happens internally. And again, please engage more. I love conversations and interactions, and I hate silences on Zoom calls and blank screens. So please engage more. So let's start. So, okay, the topic for the first topic is what is venture capital? And I want to hear about venture capital from you guys. Please just unmute yourself and go on. What do you think? What's the first word that comes to your mind? Guys, please feel free. It's just conversation. So
VCs are people who have like a lot of bucks in their pocket.
Okay. I wish that were true, but yeah. Anything else?
Well, okay, can I?
Fund used to grow a company.
Good one. What else?
Sahar.
Sir, venture capitalists provide technical and financial to startup companies.
Perfect. Anything else? Anything out of the blue, like any random thoughts? Venture capital could be like a company itself, right? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Sharath Chandrika, you can go.
Maybe
Sorry?
VCs are somebody who have belief in new ideas. So they fund them.
They're optimistic people, yes. What else? Okay, again.
Risk takers.
Sorry?
Risk takers.
Risk takers, yeah. I mean, all good points. Let me, in simple terms, this is what venture capital is. If you can't invent the future, the next best thing is to fund it. So we are people who don't build things ourselves, but we fund the people who build them. And this quote is by very great that I personally follow. And he said that long time back, and it still holds true. So venture capital is nothing but venture and capital. The two words that come to mind is venture is anything that people start, and capital is of course money, as many of you said. Now, please focus on. There are a lot of comics on venture capital, and this one is particularly interesting. So, if you guys are interested in comic stuff, I would highly recommend checking Dilbert's comic on venture capital. So, Dilbert keeps talking about this hypothetical VC called Vijay, who is like, and he calls him to be the world's most desperate venture capitalist. And this is what he says. He goes to a person and say, "Hey, doesn't even need a napkin to write on. And what are you thinking right now? Could it be a business plan? Take my money." So he's just putting money in whatever people are thinking of and what could potentially be a business. So that's a very good answer to what venture capital is. Looking at a typical journey of a company, it all starts at pre-seed stage, where the company is just one or two people strong, and it eventually goes on to become like a seed stage, early stage, growth, and a public company. So from the panel today, I feel like Ease My Trip and Policy Buzz are the two public companies. No broker, and the others are in the growth stage. We also have some early stage, and so that's the typical life cycle of the company. VCs technically focus on the pre-stage to growth stage range. Sorry, there's noise of somebody's end. Can you please mute that? Thanks. So VCs typically focus on the pre-stage to growth stage maturity of companies. Let me get into how VCs work. How does VC work? 3 simple steps: raise, invest, return, and repeat. That's the typical venture capital. We raise money from institutions, high net worth individuals who are looking for higher returns. Somebody said VCs are people with a lot of bucks. It's not my money, it's not our money, it's somebody else's money. So we do raise from institutions and all these people who give us money for higher returns. Now we invest this money in risky ventures for higher returns. When we get the returns back ourselves, we return the majority of it to our original lenders and we retain a portion of it. That's, I think, the money that you are referring to that we have in our pockets. And finally, we repeat the same process after we have deployed the entire fund money. So that's typically the entire venture capital in 3 simple words. In some sense, it's actually the reverse. It's like raise, invest, repeat, and then return. I'll tell you why that is. One of my colleagues and fellow VCs, Manish Singhal, coined this term as VC treadmill. So if you look at a typical venture capital firm, let's say if you look at a timeline, year 0, year 1, year 2, and so on and so forth, the fund starts by raising money, as I said. So we raise money from people. We invest that money. We're starting from, let's say, for example, year 2 onwards, we start investing that money. Then we raise some money again from year 5 onwards. We invest that money again, year 7 onwards. It's only year 10 that our first fund starts giving returns. And I'll cover what that is. But essentially, it's not like a simplified process. It's not like raise, invest, return, and then repeat. It's sometimes like raise, invest, repeat, raise again, invest again, and then you get the returns. And we make money when portfolio exits happen. And these exits could be via IPOs, as many of you might know. It could be via mergers and acquisitions, where the company gets acquired or bought by somebody. And via a new concept in the market called SPACs. It's like halfway between IPOs and mergers, essentially. So these are the cases when our portfolio where we invest in sort of returns our money back. Then the ownership in our portfolio is liquidated. Essentially, when the company goes public or gets acquired, we get money in form of cash and liquidity. And then some part of it goes back to our original LPs who gave us the money, and some part of it is retained by us. I'll cover more of this in detail later. Coming to how we make money. So our typical, and many of you who have studied CFA might know this, our typical fee structure that venture capital follow is 220. 2% management fee, 20% performance fee. What that means is, because we're managing somebody else's money and that person has offloaded all his risk to us, we'll charge 2% management fee every year for the 10 years that we invest the money. For example, if somebody gave us $500 million, we take in 2%, that's 10 million every year from that person just to manage the money. And 20% is a performance fee, which is the percentage of returns that we get to keep when the fund has to return. For example, if we get a return of 100 million, for example, as a fund from exits, as I said, 20% of it is going to be with us. So 20 million is something that we are going to keep for ourselves. 80 million is what we're going to give back to the people who lend the money to us. So that's the typical fund structure that we follow. 220 is what we commonly refer to it as.
Let me know what all you need.
Now, let me talk about any questions so far, first of all. Sorry, I might be going too fast. If you have any questions, just unmute yourself and go for it.
No. Yes.
Cool. The next section is what's the role of a venture capitalist? So, as you might have understood, we have three sort of stakeholders in the ecosystem. Limited partners, people who gave us money, fund, ourselves, and portfolio is wherever we invest that money in. These are startups and businesses. So, of course, because we have taken somebody else's money, we have a fiduciary responsibility towards them. We need to deliver at least 12% per annum over the next 10 years, essentially. Because I think 7 to 8% is what you get from equity markets purely. So it has to be more than that. It has to be at least 12% and above per annum over the next 10 years. And if you compound it over 10 years, it comes out to be 3x. So essentially, if somebody gives us $100 million, we have to give them back at least $300 million at the end of 10 years. That justifies our investments. And if you look at a typical limited partner, are people who lend us money, they invest only 10% of their capital into something like venture capital. Rest of their portfolio is distributed across public markets, bonds, and all of those things. So it's only 10% of the money that they invest in venture capital. And on this, they want at least a 3x return at the end of 10 years. If you look at the fund, of course, to deliver the 3x return, we need to find these great teams and invest in them. That's the sourcing part of the problem. And, venture capital is a very competitive industry. Everybody is chasing the same geese, which are very few in number. So naturally, we have to all stay ahead of each other in terms of, thought leadership, access to the founders and all of that. So we have to be ahead of the curve. We have to also build a small team of people. So VC firms tend to have very small teams for agility. For example, Axel, where I work, has a team of around 20 people in the investment team. And we manage around $1.5 billion plus of assets. So you see the kind of teams that we have. These are like really small teams. And for building these teams, we go through a lot of process of, interviewing, ref checks and all of those things. And again, for fundraising, every 3-4 years to keep the machine churning, we have to go fundraising again. When I joined the firm 2 years back, we raised a fund, and now as we speak, we're also raising for a new fund. So we have gone for fundraising in 2 years' time. So that's what we keep. We keep doing when we're a part of the fund. Coming to our portfolio, that's our company that we invested in. We have to support them via our networks. We have to give them support across strategy, hiring, mentoring, product, go-to-market, and all of those things. We are also a lot of times the board member in the company. For those of you who don't know what a board member is like this core of the company that takes all the management decisions. It's like management role in the company. And more than the founders, we are also a part of that board to take decisions. Not the majority ones, but we do own like 30% or 25% kind of board rights to vote on a decision. We have to help our portfolio companies fundraise to raise more money and eventually give us the exit that we want. So because unless somebody buys me out, I won't be getting money in return. So I have to help the companies fundraise from other people and other investors. So far, okay. So this looks like an easy business, right? I mean, this like 3 people. All you get to do is like sit on an armchair and give advice, talk to people, network with them, be on calls and all of that, right? I wish it was so easy, but what's the catch, right? This is a catch. So if you look at a typical VC performance globally, only 5% funds globally have returned 3x plus that we wanted. So remainder 95% fail as a venture capital firm. So that's the hard truth. Only 5% of VCs will eventually get the new fund from the limited partners to invest in. And that's what the exclusivity is in the whole ecosystem. Like, how do you get to be in these top 5% funds in the world so as to get, eventually the leaders and everything in the market? Any questions on this so far? All right. This is where we have to be. So that's the whole hassle. We have to be in that 5%. Sorry, you had a question? You're on mute, I guess.
Yeah. So, like, don't you think that it's riskier and difficult to identify the potential in startups in the early stage? So, like, risk mitigation strategy for it.
Correct. I'll cover that later, but you're absolutely right. So, out of 100 companies that we invest in, at least 50 of them don't go anywhere, and we lose all the money. But that's not where that's not where our money is. Our money is in that one company that gives us 100x return. So that's where we are betting essentially. But you're absolutely right. We have a lot of risk, and as an early stage investor, risk is all what we're betting on essentially. Now, I think it's a good segue into the fund economics, how VC works as a business. For example, let me start with a simple example. If you look at a typical business, right, a typical day job at a VC. So we get a company and who's asking for $1 million for 20% of the company, for example, right? And let's say we invest in that company. But over time, our stake at 20% gets diluted to 15%. This is because somebody new has come into the company, or some new investors have come into the company, or some new founder has been added, or something like that. So essentially, my 20% stake is now down to 15%. But to maintain the 20%, I put in $4 million more, for example, let's say, right? So till now, I have put in 5 million, and my stake in the company is now 20%. Let's say this continues over time, and I don't put in any more money from my account. I don't put any money from my side. So eventually, the 15% is going to dilute to 10% by the time the company goes public, for example, right? And now let's say the exit of the company, when the company goes public at $3 billion valuation, for example. Now we own 10% of the company. So essentially our total return is 300 million. This is what we get as a venture capital firm, all of it, $300 million. As I said, we get to keep 20% of it. That's a performance fee, if you remember. So 20% of 300 million is 60 million. That's what we get to keep for our operations. That's how we pay salaries. That's how we pay bonuses and everything. So if you see, we invested in $5 million and we got $60 million in return at the end of it as a fund. If you look at overall total returns, we invested 5 million and we got 300 million. This is 60x outcome, right? Great outcome. Like if I were a VC and I was on this deal, I'd probably get a bonus and I'd be promoted to a partner. It's a great outcome. So it's a 12x outcome on what we invested in. Again, it always comes with a but. This is where it gets complicated. Many of you might know the Pareto principle, 80%, 20%. In venture capital, 80% of fund returns come from 20% investments only. Remaining, most of the 50% investments don't go anywhere. They go to zero. They fail. So that's where the challenge is. If you see these statistics, Kaufman is a global organization, and they analyzed over 99 funds from 1989 to 2011. And this is what they plotted, the returns of the fund, and I think against the fund itself, right? It's a histogram. Average return was found to be 1.31x, which is far less than what the LPs wanted. So venture capital doesn't work at scale. It has to be very exclusive, and only few of these venture capitalists have cracked the code to work, essentially. This is where exclusivity comes in. So this is where Axel and a lot of other VC firms like Sequoia, Lightspeed, of the ones that you know, these are the funds which have cracked the code as to how to return 3x plus to our LPs. I'll give you some examples, and probably the person who asked the question before, the answer might be clear with this. Let's do a small quick math. So let's just let me take a quick time check. Okay. So let's run through a scenario where, let's say you are all a venture capitalist and you have $100 million that you have raised from your LPs. Now, sorry, before that, any questions so far on this? The next section is going to be slightly more mathematical. So it would be great if you all can, be a part of the conversation. Yeah, please go for it.
Hi, Pranay. So I had a question in these slides before, wherein
this one?
Previous to this. Yes, this one. In this, you said it began with investment of 1 million at 20%, right? How did you, and the final return you calculated, that was on 5 million.
Yes. This is so 5 million. This is my share, essentially what I get to make. If you look at the overall investment, I get around 300 million from that 5 million, essentially. That's a 60x investment.
Okay, no, so that was so I got 60 million. That is based on your 20%.
Correct.
Okay, 2% of that.
Sorry, 2% what? What's that? Oh, no. Sorry. Okay, wait. 2% is what I get. So 2% is, think of this like a salary that people give me. For example, if I raise $100 million from, let's say, you today, because I'm managing your money, you are going to pay me 2 million straight every year without expecting anything. So that is my salary. So 2 million is what I get every year, irrespective of what I do. If I fail your business, if I fail your investment, so it be. So wait, sorry. So I get to keep 2 million for the 10 years. So 20 million is straight going into my pocket. Even if I lose all your money, I'm still going to get it. This 20% is over and above my 2%. 2% is what I get for good work. Essentially, I have 10x or 60x your money, so I get to keep 20% of it, is what the state business is. Did it make sense? Sorry, I think the guy has.
Yes. I think he's not in the call. Shantanu, you can go ahead.
I'm going with that question only. So those 2% per year, like 2% per year, so say for 10 years, and the 20% at the end of the deal, maybe. So these two are different things, right? I mean,
Yes, four different things.
so it's over and above 50-60%.
Correct. So 2% to the 220 formula. 2% is what I get irrespective of what I do. So if I manage your money, I get 2%. Simple.
Is that right?
Now, if I lose your money, if I make it 10x, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to get 2 million every year for the 10 years. So 20 million is what I get every year. The remainder, the performance fee, which is what I get when I do well for your investment, on that I get to keep 20%. Essentially. Yeah, please go for it.
Hi. So how does the stake gets diluted from like 20% when you started to 10% when you are exiting the business?
Yeah. So think of this like this. So, for example, there's you and I who are starting up together. Now we own 50% of the company today, right? Now let's say we get in a new investor who wants 20% of the company. So both of us will dilute 20% to give room to the new guy, essentially. You got that point?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, it's simple. So it becomes 40, 40, and 20. Similarly, when a new guy comes in and he asks for 10 million, 10% company, we all dilute by 10%, essentially, equally. So we'll be down to 36, and whatever, you get the math.
Yeah, got it. Thanks.
Dilution happens. Yeah. Rahul, please go for it.
Yeah, I had almost a similar question to what Gaurav asked. So generally, people dilute if the evaluation increases, right?
Correct.
So my point was that.
Let me correct that. People dilute whenever a new person gets added to the cap table, the equity table.
Yeah, but they'll only add if.
Sorry.
Like if the company is making profit, they'll probably only add if it increases the.
No.
In most cases.
Unfortunately, there have also been cases where there have been down rounds. Essentially, the last round was at a higher valuation than the new round. So even in those cases, people have added new people because the company is in distress and company needs money anyways. So they add a new investor for whatever. So the best example would be, I think, that global WeWork, right? So there's a down round in the company. The last round happened at a higher valuation. The next round happened at a lower valuation, essentially. That's not a good sign to have, but yes, that does happen a lot.
So if a company is making profit, why would they go for a lower evaluation? Suppose if a company went for
they're making profits, they won't go for a down round, for sure. If the company is not doing that great, for example, if the company has slowed down its growth, or the company is doing negatively with respect to what they used to do before, then only the down rounds happen. Otherwise, no, it's always a positive round. Ajish, go for it.
Hi, Pranay. In a similar case, if a company, if you invest 5 million in a different company and you couldn't get this return, so are you still supposed to, your fundraiser fund giver, you are still supposed to give the 12% back, or?
No. So if I lose your money, I lose it for sure, forever. I don't have to pay it back. That's the deal. That's the good part of it. So I still get 2% from managing it, but I don't get the performance fee on it, essentially. And see, there are also some nuances around it. So now that I've asked the question, I can tell you this. I can only charge, and for all those who are interested in knowing this, I can only charge the performance fee once I have given them a bare minimum return, essentially. That's called the hurdle rate. For those of you who know CFA, who have studied CFA, know this. There's something called as a hurdle rate. Hurdle rate is basically anything that crosses the hurdle that gets eligible for performance fee. For example, that hurdle rate could be 10x, for example. So any outcome that's more than 10x, I'll be able to charge performance fee on it. But any outcome less than 10x, I won't be able to charge any essentially performance fee on it. Did that make sense?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions? Yeah, Karthik, go for it.
Yeah, so my question is that how do you become a lead?
Sorry, you broke off for me. Is it for everyone?
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, how do you partner? Is there a minimum criteria how much you can invest, or I as an individual can diversify my portfolio and maybe put a couple of lakhs in your company?
So again, it depends on the size of the fund that you're running. For example, Axel needs at least $50 million of capital to be invested for a limited partner, essentially. So unless you invest in more than $50 million, you are not allowed to be part of RLP, essentially. But a lot of smaller funds nowadays, for example, if you're looking at India as a fund, India as a geography, a lot of the funds like Utsav Mitra's fund, I think it's called iSeed. iSeed, as in iSeed, you can be a partner, you can be a limited partner with just $5,000 to $10,000. I think that's few lakhs. So it depends on the size of the fund that you're running. If you're running a large fund like Axel, Sequoia, Lightspeed, there are some higher requirements that you have to meet to become a limited partner. But if you're looking at a smaller fund like a small seed stage or angel fund, you can invest in whatever money you have. Like I think the minimum criteria that I know of is $2,500 minimum. Essentially, you can invest any amount more than that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Any other question? Yeah, let's go for it.
I wanted to know how venture capitalists raise funds. Do investors of venture capitalists know where his funds is going to be invested, or do you commit any kind of return to your investors, or how do you approach them?
Yeah, good question. Why don't I take this at the end of it if there's still time?
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So let's run some scenarios. Quick time check. Okay. So let's say that we are running, let's say you all are running a $100 million fund and you have to make 10 investments, $10 million in all of them, essentially. And of course, there's a desired outcome is 3x. And assume you have 25% ownership at the time of exit. Let's take scenario one. All of your 10 investments exit 50 million. Not a great outcome. Like you invested in 10 million, you got 12.5 million because again, you hold 25% of the 50 million at the end of it. And from these 10 companies, you get around 125 million in return total. Let's keep it aside. Now, scenario two. Half of these investments do 5x. So half of them go 50 million and half of them go 100 million, for example. Now, a typical outcome from this would be 12.5 million, which is 25% of 50 million, into 5 plus 25% of 100 million, that's 25 million times 5. You get a total return of 187.5 million. If you look at scenario 3, everything else does the same. There's only one outlier in your entire portfolio. So 5 of these your portfolio companies gave you $50 million exits. 4 of them gave you $100 million exits, and 1 gave you a $500 million exit. So from that one $500 million company, you get 125 million, and a total portfolio return goes to 287.5 million. Let's look at scenario 4. All of them do average, like all of them go 50 million, but there's one big fat unicorn sitting at the end of it, which gave you $1 billion exit, and you own 250 million from that investment. Total return has gone to 362.5. Let's look at scenario number 5. Your 5 startups have failed. Your 5 startups have gone to zero. 3 of them have gone to $25 million exits. 1 of them has gone to $200 million exit, and there's 1 unicorn in your portfolio. A VC from this portfolio would generate 0 from these 5 failures, 12.5 from these 3 $25 million exits, 50 million from the one $200 million exit, and 250 million from the 1 unicorn exit. The total return in this case is 318.5 million. Now, the fifth scenario is what the reality is ultimately. So, as I said, 5 of these companies have gone to zero. That's exactly what I said at the beginning. 50% of the portfolio goes to zero. Essentially, it doesn't go anywhere. We lose the money on all of them. 3 of them gave us marginally improved outcomes. 1 of them gave us good outcome, and 1 gave us outsized outcomes, essentially. That's all what we are betting for when we're raising a fund, when we're investing a fund. Essentially, when I do investing, I have to look for that one company that can give me the largest outcome. And I have to hope that every company that I invest in gives me that kind of outcome. So that at the end of it, even 20% of it, even 1 or 2 exits can fulfill my fund return, essentially. So that's all the fund economics that you have to know. Again, this is important for all of you to understand this. So I'll probably spend a little more time here, five minutes of my time. So on the y-axis, you see the typical fund size that a company has raised. So you might hear these news all the time, like this particular fund has closed. Any question on this? Any question on understanding the table and the layout? Because the next couple of slides are going to be on this table itself. Anything? Do you understand all the tables and columns? Perfect. Okay. So let's start with $50 million, the first row, first column, essentially. For a $50 million fund, you have to return at least $150 million at the end of it. And if you have 5% ownership in the company, in the overall portfolio, let's say. Sorry, somebody had a question? Okay. So let's say $50 million fund, you have to give back $150 million to be at the least. And you have on an average 5% ownership in all the companies at the time of exit. So you need $3 billion worth outcome from your entire portfolio. Did it make sense for everyone? Essentially $50 million upon 5%. Sorry, 50 into 3 upon 5%, essentially. So that's how you read it, the entire table. And let's look at 10%. So for a $50 million fund, you have to return $150 million. And let's say you own 10% of the company. So you actually have to have at least $1.5 billion exit from your portfolio to give you the 3x that you want. So imagine you raise 50 million, but you have to have at least 1.5 billion from that exit from your portfolio, essentially. So that's the crux of it, essentially. This is where it gets difficult. How do you bet on companies that are likely giving you 1.5 billion kind of outcome when you're a very small fund like $50 million fund? So that's the entire table. That's what the entire table is all about. I'm going to focus on this particular space in between. That's where most of the VCs play, and that's called a circle of practicality. Now, for all the funds, and typically we have seen in India, we have typically seen funds from $50 million to $500 million fund. Axel, for that matter, happens to be a $500 million fund itself. The last fund that we raised was $500 million. Now, at the time of exit, most of us get 10 to 15% in that range outcome from all of our portfolio on an average. Now imagine for Axel size fund, I'm going to need $15 billion of output from exit to give my return, to give my money back to my LPs. Now let's look at that number again very closely. $15 billion. That's at least 15 unicorns. You get that right? $15 billion worth exits is what you need. And for this, you need at least 15, like round number, but 15 unicorns in the portfolio. So that's all what we are betting for, essentially. We are trying to look for 15 unicorns in our portfolio by the end of 10 years. So we started our fund in 2019, and over the next course of 5 years, where we deploy the fund, where we deploy the money, in the next 5 years, we're looking for $15 billion worth of outcome for us to even give back the fund. So that's our circle of practicality at Axel. We operate in this range, and so that's all you need to know. Consider career in VC now. First of all, there's a mountain of knowledge that keeps growing. What I mean by that is, because you're meeting so many people daily, you're meeting new entrepreneurs, you're meeting fellow VCs, you're meeting new operators in the ecosystem, new product managers, head of product, all of these people. You are improving your knowledge 1% daily, right? Your power of network. Imagine you meet 1% daily in your network, through your meetings or whatever. This network grows over time, and the power of the network is huge. You can tap into anyone in your network for anything, essentially. That's one of the biggest reasons why people join venture capital. You can create exponential impact. Now, what I mean by that is, for example, you all heard from, Upgrad and No Broker, right? Now, all of these companies have created exponential impact for their customers and for the market. That's all you get to be a part of as well as investors in those companies. So when we invested in urban companies, Swiggy, Flipkart, all of them, in a way, we are also part of the impact that these companies created in the ecosystem. So that's what I mean by exponential impact. And as a bonus thing, you have an unlimited upside. Now, this is the best outcome that you can expect outside entrepreneurship. That means starting up yourself. Now, if you don't want to start up yourself and you still want to be in this ecosystem and you want crazy upside, like you still want to get all those fat checks and bonuses and respect and value in the ecosystem, venture capital is probably the closest to starting up, because you get to sit on the boards of these companies, you get to work with some of these founders very closely, and a lot of them, right? So that's a bonus that you get, the unlimited upside for you. Any question on this? I'm happy to double click from my own experience if you want to know. Yeah, Neeraj, please go for it.
You said that you have an opportunity to build a large network. So how you will leverage this network in future?
Right. So essentially, see, I mean, there's a lot of ways in which I can leverage the network. So if I know the founders of all these large companies, I can just, message them on WhatsApp, asking for a job for a friend, asking them to come at such events, asking them to just hang out with me and, share, whatever they are thinking about, the idea that I'm probably working on, anything like that, right? Essentially, it's like power of people. Now, you can tap people for advice, for career changes, for, moving up the ladder, for, all of those things, right? Maybe personal help, maybe mentorship, maybe guidance. So that's the power that you unleash when you have that network, essentially, of people. And these are like top people who everybody respects in the ecosystem. So that's one of the strongest reasons, even for me personally, why I joined venture capital was the same reason. I wanted to build this network that I've built on top of meaningful relationships over time, and which sort of will become helpful to me maybe 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. So that's the power of network that I'm talking about. Okay, I think I have only 3 minutes left, so I'll cover this. A very important slide for a lot of you to know. It's a game of patience. You have to be very patient in this, because people networks get built over a very long period of time and slowly, essentially. You get to build that knowledge 1% daily. So you have to be very patient. It's not like every single day you get on a job and you're like, okay, I learned something 10x than what I did the last day. It's very gradual, it's very small, and you have to build it very patiently. You are known by the numbers that you have. Like any other job, we also have metrics. We also have like our own numbers to prove. And for a venture capitalist, it's number of unicorns that we generated, the number of exits that we had, or all of those things, right? As I mentioned in the early slides, it's all power law. Only 5% of the VCs will generate 95% of the outcomes in the market. And a lot of other interpretations. Like only 95% of your portfolio is going to be 95% of the return is going to come from 5% of the companies, and all of that. And the worst part is always be selling. You have to be selling always, 24/7, 365. Whoever you meet, whether it's a founder of the portfolio company, whether it's a new founder, whether it's a new head of product in the market, you have to always be selling either your own fund or your portfolio companies for a job. Essentially, you have to help the portfolio in any way you can. So naturally, you have, when whoever you meet, you have to sell your own fund and the portfolio companies. So these are the 4 reasons why why you can consider not joining a venture capital. But if you still are okay with all this and you are more excited by these 4 outcomes, I think VC is going to be a great place for you, all of you. And so that's all from my, sorry, Shantanu.
Just have a query about Excel partners. I mean, do the company also I mean invest in only startups or something like, I mean, last year or last to last year, Reliance also raised funds from various I mean private equity and VCs for their retail business and few other expansions. So do Excel partners is also a part of that that thing?
No. So unfortunately, we don't look at public companies now. We do look at very large scale companies, like companies which are sort of in the valuation range of 1 billion and above, unicorn investments. We are now doing those things. But originally, we were only early stage investors. We only used to make early stage bets, companies at seed and series A stage, essentially. But now we are able to go up till series C, series D, series E, all of those things ourselves.
So, in the interest of time, we are moving ahead with investor panel discussion. Neeraj, you can mail the question. We can also take the question at the end of investor panel discussion. Pranay is going to be here. Thank you, Pranay, for this insightful and wonderful PPT session. I'm sure it was enlightening to our students. And guys, we have heard speeches from founders, entrepreneurs, and venture capitalists. Now let us change our focus and shift our gear to investor panel discussion. We have 3 esteemed investors from top tier venture capitalist firm. We have heard Pranay from Axel, and we are having Akash from Tanglin and Rahul from Times Internet. So let me give a quick introduction of them. Akash is a part of investment team at Tanglin Venture Partners, a Singapore headquartered venture capitalist firm targeting high growth startups in India and Southeast Asia. Previously, Akash co-founded Relay Campus, an online school for tech and business rule. And Rahul is a venture capitalist at Times Internet, India's largest digital products company, as well as an angel investor. So we also have our very own professor, Mr. Rajesh Pandit, as our moderator. He have a total experience of 27 plus years of in management industry, training, executive coaching, and leading P&L roles. He is a visiting faculty in IIM Ahmedabad as well as in IIM Udaipur. So without further ado, let's start our panel discussion.
Hey, Arvind. Morning. Thank you so much. Gentlemen, it's indeed our pleasure to have 3 of you out here with us on a Sunday. And Pranay, it was a very enriching conversation for me as well. How a VC thinks. It's a delight, and you can see the excitement in the faces of my students and the august audience out there. And there must be a few entrepreneurs as well. Yeah, the way I looked at was, I had one question to address, which was how to join VC. And Pranay, you have already addressed that in some sense. While you did not say here are the 10 questions, you gave a glimpse of what kind of thinking we need to bring. So I'll keep it aside and I'll focus more around entrepreneurs and investment. So today, if you ask me 3 topics that keeps Indian youth busy, one is clearly Bollywood, second one is cricket, and third is startups. Okay, so I may not be in that order. The order may be changing. Yeah, sorry, Pranay, go ahead.
Can I add a 4th one there? Shark Tank.
Shark Tank. Okay, yeah. Broader opinion. Do pitch in, and my machine has a little bit of a challenge. I'm going to plug in an external camera so that the audience doesn't miss. The view is always helpful a little bit. Not that I'm the most prettiest or the handsome face, but nevertheless, the connection improves when you have a video on. So let me get that right. But before that, let me start with a question without much ado. The question I had is, let me start with Akash, because Akash comes from Tanglin, and Tanglin is the youth in the forum in some sense in the VC world, because Rahul belongs to Times, and how long they have been around. Pranay told about the age of Axel. It's it's the grandpa of the investment world in some sense, at least in the startup world, right? 37 years or 38 years of its existence, knocking at the fourth completion of the 4 decades. So, Akash, will start from you. Let us understand a little bit around how you folks think, because you are somewhat a fresh blood, so to say, in the investment arena. Not so much with the experience. I know you're a founder. You folks have had some background of investments, but you must be looking at it in a slightly different lens, because you'll have to. It's also a competitive world. Like Pranay's previous talk was there. I don't know, Rahul, Rakash, you got a chance to listen. He said we are competing against each other because it's a tiny piece of the risk capital is the tiniest piece of one's portfolio, right? Even if you say family office, they put in what, 2 to 3% to punt. And he did give a beautiful point that a normal equity play gives them 12% because they have the access to best of the talent in the field. And therefore you have to outrun them. And among that, now you have hundreds of you. So Akash, just share a little bit around how you look at this world and how you have tried to carve out a niche for yourself. In the process, we'll also know how a new age investor would look at a startup world, so that the consumption side or the demand side. Demand is us, in the sense the entrepreneurs will know how to look at you folks. Huh?
Right. Thanks, Professor, and hi everyone. Great to be here, and thanks for joining us on a Sunday, almost afternoon now, or noon. So let me start by saying this, that most VCs, in fact, I think 95-98% of VCs, for-profit VCs, just optimize for one thing, and that is the returns that you make in investments, right? And there are 2-3 things. If we break down returns, it's basically 2-3 things. How big is the company currently? How big can it get in the future? And how much money will we make out of this? So this is like the first question whenever we see any investment, right? And if you think about it, literally, it doesn't matter if you are a 40-year-old fund like Excel or you are a 3-year-old fund like Tanglin. The idea remains the same. Now, to analyze how big is the company currently and how big will it go in the next 5 to 7 years, different people have different thought processes there. And that's why the diversity, the nuances of the thought process, that diligence come into the picture. So frankly, there is no specific niche that a newer fund will work on compared to an older fund. It's just the way to think about what the future would be might be different, and that is a function of both how individual thinks about the future and how the fund thinks about the future. For example, there are funds who will say that consumer internet right now, right, burns a lot of money. Flipkart burns a lot of money, Swiggy burns a lot of money, Zomato burns a lot of money, and these are the most successful consumer internet startups in India. And I don't want to invest in startups where they burn a lot of money. So there can be an ideology in a fund or at an individual level that I would prefer startups which are more profitable. So I don't know if you have heard about Inframarket, which is a Excel portfolio company, right? It is a company which is right now, I think, valued at $3.5 billion or something, but it is also profitable as we speak. It's not that it is burning money. So different people look at it at a different lens. I think I'll broadly share how we think about evaluating these opportunities. What is the core thesis of ours? For us, there are 2-3 questions that we try to answer whenever we look at an investment. The first question really is about how deep is the problem? Is the problem even real? And to all the entrepreneurs out there, and I've been an entrepreneur myself, I think this is one of the biggest question to answer before finalizing an idea. More often than not, and I'm coming this from an entrepreneur's point of view and not a VC point of view, is sometimes we just like a space. Okay, grocery, 15-minute grocery is very, very exciting. I can do something in it. and let me just go there and just work on it, right? Entrepreneurs are irrational people, and they just get passionate about a problem statement and just like glamorized by it, just jump over it and do not validate the problem enough. So for right, some and there is a role of bias also in the play. If you have been through a journey, you think that it is a problem in your head, but it might not be a problem for like 10 million people out there. It would be a problem for, let's say, 10,000 people, which will mean that it will not be a huge outcome, right? So validating problem statement, how real is the problem? Is this a vitamin or is this a painkiller? That establishing that for us is super important. So that is one thing that we do. The second thing that we do is, okay, the problem is there. If this problem is solved, it can lead to massive outcome. But is the solution which is being proposed by the startup, proposed by the entrepreneur, really solves that problem? Is this a problem which is solvable by technology and the exact technology that the entrepreneur is using? I think that is fairly self-explanatory. There are different ways to solve a problem, and you need to build a view as to which is the right way to solve that problem. For example, Swiggy, I'll give you an example, right? Swiggy and Zomato, and there were like 15 different food delivery companies back in 2015. And different people were solving it from different lenses. Swiggy came and said, it is a food delivery business, but essentially it is a delivery business. And we have to solve logistics to ensure that we will have the best customer experience out there. And which is why in 2018, 2019, Swiggy was the only company which was reliable enough to give you a delivery in 30 minutes. Like, because they had their own proprietary distribution logistics system, which they built over time to ensure that they are the best in that. Other companies took a different approach. Some companies even like outsourced their logistics, right? So you need to build a view, like, is the solution, is the approach of solving this problem actually like is the right way to solve? And the third is, okay, there is a problem, you're solving the problem, but is there a value to be captured by the startup solving the problem? I'll give you an interesting fact, right? What I mean by value being captured. Microsoft Windows. There was a time where 90%, 80% of the computers was loaded with Microsoft Windows and had Excel, PowerPoint, Word, right? It was basically powering the entire business IT operations of the world. And so imagine the kind of productivity which Windows, Excel, Word, etc. are creating in the world. It would be in the range of hundreds of billions of dollars, right? Just imagine the value that they were adding to the ecosystem was immense. But the value captured by Microsoft Windows, and what I mean by that is, what was their revenue pool? If they're adding so much value to the world, how much share of that pie are they actually getting in terms of just revenue? And it was frankly not even 1% of that number. And this, I'm talking this about like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years earlier. So is this a model? Is this a market where the value can be captured? Or is this a market where you will always keep burning money? I mean, I should not say this, but there are still this hot question right now amongst all the VCs: is there value to be captured in this 15-minute delivery market? Can you actually ever make money? Okay, there is a problem. Everyone will love to get an ice cream delivered at their home in 10 minutes. And sure, that is a problem. And it is a problem faced by like the entire country. So it's a huge problem. And you are solving it by giving it in 15 minutes. But is there a value to be captured? Can you actually get some revenues out of it? Because it's a bloody a cash intensive business. And there has to be like 100 things that have to go right for you to even like think about making a tiny sliver of that market. So is there a value to be captured? That's three. And I think if these three are like checked, then it becomes a very exciting opportunity. So that's how Tanglin thinks about investments. Yeah, I hope
fantastic.
I have
Fantastic, Akash. Fantastic. Thanks for the skinning the animal of evaluation in some sense. So what in essence you are saying is, give the tangible examples. Fundamentally, founders or the venture that is representing the entrepreneurship, has it figured out what is the minutiae of the problem? Like really getting the pulse, right? Finger on the pulse. And you said Swiggy, while it said food delivery, they realized it's really the delivery, and within delivery, the reliability of delivery and in time. And that's the quality for the end user. If food is incidental, and they took that as a niche play to enter. Now they can actually deliver anything you want, right? And that's the kind of, so that's one part. The second is how large the problem is. When you solve that, how big is the opportunity? And again, it links back to what Pranay said, saying you have to look for 10x or 50x, because by nature you have to return 3x in 10 years, and 75% of your portfolio will be bunkum any which way, and nobody can forecast these will be the 7 out of the 10 which will go bust, right? So you are placing your odds on something which is a 10x play. And third, you said very interesting one, Microsoft one, which is never a value based pricing, right? It is like okay, what you can afford for what I think $20 you will be able to part ways with for a software of this nature, and just go ahead with that. But the beauty of it is it's a horizontal play, so therefore they have a huge market to play. So if you were to look at 20 years back, how the Microsoft would have looked at, I think these were very pertinent points. Thank you for bringing that up. I'll now go to Rahul. And Pranay, I'll come to you last, because we have already heard you. There is a little bit of mystery around Rahul, so I want to unveil that mystery a little bit. Rahul, welcome. You are part of Times Internet, and you have been an entrepreneur. Beauty is all through three of you have been entrepreneurs. So you've been on the other side, okay? And therefore, I'm sure when you sit in your table, you can feel at least the other side a lot more, unlike others. But Rahul, in your case, it's very interesting because Times Group is more of a corporate venture, right? In some sense, Times Internet is a digital arm of your group. It's at the cutting edge of all the other group companies, and you invest in those tech and think play. How do you look at some of those investments? Does it have to have a synergy with what you're doing as a group company, or it can be a total opportunistic play, which means doesn't matter where I'm, as long as tech, digital, I can go and capitalize on the opportunity. How do you look at it a little bit? If you could share, it'll help.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having all of us. Both of them are friends, so I can say that on behalf of all of us. And since you said you can be candid and jump into the discussion anywhere, so from that candidness, I just want to ask the audience a question. Whenever you call Rajesh a professor, do you typically remember Netflix professor or Professor Rajesh? Akash responded the email stating, "Great to meet you, professor," and suddenly Netflix professor came in front of my eyes. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone is comfortable and ask any questions. Jumping back to your question, sir, absolutely. I think we wear, a double hat, which essentially means, we invest in things that are strategic to us, because you're absolutely right. We're a corporate venture capital, we're a CVC essentially, unlike Axel or Tanglin here, right, which are proper venture capital funds. So essentially, we have a dual role, and it's not necessary every CVC will have their own mandate. A lot of CVCs, in fact, generally CVCs would do only things strategic to them. We are very different. We do both things, things that we feel could be strategic, where we also are very upfront with the founders when we, go meet them, that, hey, there could be strategy in years to come, right? And fun thing, we've backed multiple companies in the media space. Some of them, of course, we've acquired. Some of them we don't, end up looking at them as an acquisition or to make them a part of the group, but just want to keep holding that stake, for probably ages to come. And on the other side, we've also backed companies that we feel are large opportunities, and we may not have to do anything with those with a media angle in it. Just to give you maybe a couple of examples on both the sides, we've backed companies like News in Shorts, and we've backed companies like Pocket FM, right, which are very strategic, pure media. Pratilipi, which is a vernacular Indic language, publishing platform. And then we've backed companies like Shuttle, like Oxford Cabs, like Delivery, right, where you're practically moving things, or people, or essentially, arranging for student accommodation, right, which were nothing to do with media, but we saw them as very large opportunities, and we felt we should be a part of this new journey, essentially. So that's how we look at it.
Very, very nice. Amazing. And for the reason is, it's very interesting. My students have picked up invited three of you, because for us, from where we are a provider to all of you in some sense, right? And today, large companies are heavily invested in startups now. They are, because they can't be away from this game anymore. A simple reason is the life of companies. You would have seen that InnoSight report. Some of you might have seen this. It publishes every year the age of S&P 500 company and the longevity of companies, how it is diminishing. 1965, it was something like 34 years. 2016, it had come down to 24. And current estimate, according to them, 2027, it will be 15 years. So 24 to 15 in 11 years, you guys can see how many large companies will be decimated, right? Decimated by, and that will be none other than the ones which you are fostering, actually, right? The seeds of these companies are being sown, and you are the fertilizer, oxygen, everything else at this moment for many of those, and they'll contest. And therefore, large companies, it's becoming imperative. And the fresh thinking and all of this is becoming very important. So Rahul, your viewpoint has been extremely valuable. I just want to extend one question based on that, because we want to get an understanding. See, the corporate way it works is there is a mothership, right? It's a big one. And there is a small boat, which is at whatever the highest speed motor boat is on the next, in the periphery. How much seat at the table, what it takes to build that, because you will also have to sell internally, because when you say Times, the first thing anybody would remember is Times of India, and it will grab the majority of the mollycoddling, right, in some sense. So how important it is to sell internally for you as well, as much as you attract outside?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. That's a very interesting question. So first of all, just to avoid the Kodak moment, I think that's the reason Times Group started Times Internet, right? Because we realized that, hey, while you are saying that, and which is still valid, that if somebody calls Times, the first thing you think of newspaper, maybe in another 10, 12, 15 years, maybe that will not be the case, right? And hence was Times Internet born, right? Times Internet is a little unique in itself, and I will answer your question for the larger clarity of students, essentially. Times Internet is very unique. It's basically a bunch of startups in itself, to be honest, where we either some internal people start new experiments, which become larger companies, or we end up acquiring a lot of companies and feed them into the mothership, essentially, right? So just to give you an example, Dine Out, that's a table reservation platform. We acquired that company. Crickbus, the largest cricketing related platform in the world, we acquired that company. We acquired Get Me a Shop. So MX Player, which is India's largest OTT now, is an acquisition for us, right? So we typically go and acquire companies, and one thing we make sure is original founders run that company, right? So we don't go and acquire companies 100%. We want to make sure there's enough skin and enough relevance for the founder. So it's a unique way where we're saying that, hey, you get distribution, and you get a lot more capital to further build this. This is still your company, right? Go and take it, 100x from here, essentially, right? On the other hand, for example, Ghana was completely built inside, right? So it was an experiment that ran for, a couple of years, and then we felt like, wow, this could be huge, and there you go, right? Magic Bricks was built absolutely internally, right? So there are a lot of experiments from the learnings, right? Which we keep. So if you ask me today, there would be 10, 20 experiments going within the company today as well, right? And maybe in 2 years or 4 years or 6 years, you'll see that becoming as a large business unit within Times Internet. So what I'm essentially trying to say is the culture is predominantly very heavy on taking your own decisions, right? So a Ghana will have a very different culture from a Dine Out versus a Magic Bricks, right? If somebody asks me, hey, what's the Times Internet culture? I may not have an answer, because Times Internet doesn't have a culture, but every different business has its own culture, essentially. Now, just quickly coming to the point that, when we go out, we also need to check internally. Absolutely. In fact, we go out on particular targets only if we have a buy-in internally, right? Otherwise, you are ending wasting up an entrepreneur's time, right? So we're very deeply entrenched with a lot of these different businesses, and that's when we take a call jointly that, hey, is this something we really want to explore, right? And just don't want to be, that, hey, let's explore this. There's a very large difference between the two, right? When you're like, hey, let's look at this, or being very, very sure that this is something we genuinely want to explore, right? So it's more like a want versus need, more versus hey, you want to get slim versus you want to exercise, right? So that's how we look at it. Mostly in large corporate houses, this is a very large challenge. There are innovation arms of banks, for example, where they'll go meet startups and say like, hey, we want to do this, this, and this, but they typically don't have an internal buy-in, or they have a buy-in which is just to say, but not a real buy-in, because the senior most management is saying like, hey, innovate, right? And those business heads are saying like, hey, let's engage with startups, but their real intention or real commitment to that isn't really there, right? So it's to be honest, a very double-edged sword when you are dealing with a corporate house. Unless you could validate that, hey, they are actually serious, it's undoubtedly a bit tricky. I'll be very honest here.
Fantastic. Thanks for opening up that window for all of us. Honestly, I had not seen this with so much of fascination. Now I understand you're also kind of a entrepreneurial lab, right? Or a large incubator. I mean, it's like a Y Combi almost run within an organization. And we didn't even realize Ghana is founded there. Some, Dine Out is being fostered there and things like that. Very interesting. Very interesting. Thanks, Rahul. Thanks for sharing that. Pranay, now I'll come over to you. And you are part of a organization which has been there for decades. One question I have is, you have a very nice view being within the arm. The way people within Axel, your compatriots elsewhere in UK, US talk about startups, and the way you look at the startups in India, how do they compare? Are we all there in that play, or is there some kind of a difference? You hear, is there a gap between what you see elsewhere and here?
Very interesting question. So if I were to answer this probably a couple of years back, I would have said no. Companies outside, funds outside, or even our own sister funds in the US and the UK, do they look at Indian companies? No, they didn't. They weren't interested, because there's enough deep market in the US and the UK markets. There's enough play there. But the answer has changed today. So today we have a lot of these calls daily with these US and UK teams, just to understand how our portfolio companies are doing. And that's a good thing for the ecosystem overall. That has happened primarily because of one thing. And of course, I mean, one of the good things that have happened because of a bad thing like pandemic. Now that sales have started becoming like very borderless, right? A lot of our Indian SaaS companies, even without having a US presence, they started selling into US markets and global markets. That has made the entire SaaS portfolio a lot more interesting for even US investors, including ourselves, including Axel US. Talking about the consumer startups, because of so much time that people have spent in their houses, the consumer behavior has sort of changed a lot. Essentially, they started to order more, watch more, waste more time, if I were to say, and that has all led to consumerism probably touching its peak in the last decade or something, and that has given rise to all the more interest in the consumer startups from India. And you see a lot of these, as Akash mentioned, 10-minute delivery companies, and that all of them make so much sense now, more than ever. And that's the reason why probably all of the, globally, these 10-minute grocery ideas have been flourishing, essentially. So I think now it's a lot more better than it was a couple of years back. But I would say a lot of it has to be, it has to do with consumerism, borderless, the business going borderless. Founders are eventually getting even more better over time, if I were to say that. The quality of founders that we used to see probably a couple of years back and the quality of founders that we're seeing now, it's a lot different. And also there's been a lot of, again, one of the side effects has been, the exodus of people from the regular jobs to new entrepreneurs. So a lot of the, the really knowledgeable people like heads of businesses or heads of product at these companies, they've all started leaving their jobs. The top partners at McKinsey's and the McKinsey's of the world, they've all started leaving their jobs and come on to the startup side. So that has suddenly made the entrepreneurship itself as a more attractive concept. And for this reason, I think even globally, and Akash and Rahul both know this, a lot of these global funds have started looking at India very actively. They have even started hiring people for looking at India as a market. So I mean, it's been a good time for us. I mean, of course, there have been some bad things due to the pandemic, but I think this is one thing that has been the silver lining to the startup ecosystem at least.
Fantastic, Pranay. I mean, very nice way you put it in three ways. One is the blurring of the boundaries, and the second is the consumer behavior which has changed, and the third is the competence, the experience part, which is now flowing in very easily into the entrepreneurial world. Otherwise, and the fourth is what you mentioned, the returns are now there, because if you look at Zomato and whatever has happened is okay valuation wise, but first time in some exits happened in an IPO route in India. Till now, we didn't have startups having an IPO exit, and therefore, folks like you, why would you invest in a country like India, right? Because the only thing you can do is bundle the parcel and give it to somebody else. Yeah,
that's a good point, because see, 10 years is what we expect the company to go exit, and it sort of aligns with what IMU's session is today, like a decade of. It's a perfect time for a lot of our investments to show returns. And that's true with almost all the VCs out there. So almost all the investments that they made in early 2010s or maybe early 2020s, 2010s, sorry, they're all showing returns now. So it's a very good point. Yeah.
So those are some of the things which are all culminating into saying we are almost at par, or we are at least looked at par with anyone else today. That's a very, very pertinent point, extremely pertinent point. Thank you. So now, anyone else had anything to add? Sorry, Akash, you wanted to add anything, or Rahul?
Yeah, I can probably add.
Please, Akash, please add.
Please add a couple of points to what Pranay said. So it's very interesting, right? Like in 2015 or in 2010, right? Indian startup ecosystem was probably like 20 years back compared to the US ecosystem. In 2015, that gap became like probably 5 to 10 years. In 2020, which like Pranay said, 2 years back, there was a lag, and that was like probably a 5-year, 3-year lag. Now what we are seeing is there is a 6 months lag, or in some areas, India is doing better than the other countries, other matured markets. And so we are currently living at that point in history where we will, in 20 years later, right, we will see this decade in these 2-3 years and say, okay, these were the time when India almost became comparable and even like surpassed some of these matured company ecosystems with matured tech companies. So it's really beautiful to live in the world that we are, especially as VCs, because we just pehle everything that we used to do was take examples from US, take example from China, see if it has worked there. And okay, our investment is now de-risked because we have a successful model, let's invest. That thought process has changed now. We have to think about how this will work in India because we don't have a parallel in the world. Misho is a very pertinent example here, right? Right now, there are companies which are mushrooming in different parts of the world saying this is Misho for Africa. This is Misho for Indonesia. This is Misho for LATAM. Udan. Udan model doesn't exist 3 years back when Udan started, right? The model did not exist anywhere else in the way or shape that they have chosen, right? Now you have Udan for Southeast Asia. Now you have Udan for Pakistan. Now you have Udan for Bangladesh. Now you have Udan for LATAM. So India is serving as this powerhouse, which is like enlightening the world, and this is very beautiful to see.
Beautiful. Very nice. Thanks very much for including that. Rahul, you wanted to say something? Sorry.
Sure.
Something that triggered your mind.
I just wanted to say a couple of things. Akash rightly said. I think newer models are emerging, right? But we also need to see that. There's innovation on two sides, right? Like there's innovation because newer models are emerging, and that's also happening because India is very unique in itself, right? It's fairly incorrect to compare, that, hey, this happened in the US, this happened in the China. Although we always, by all means, we all look for some examples or some signals, essentially, to see if there's a proof point, some happened like this anywhere in the world, right? Which is actually very counterintuitive because you want to back innovation and you're looking for something that's already happened, right? But just to come back, right? So new models are happening because India is very unique, right? And people are, deep diving to figure out those problems, right? And then the payment infrastructures, UPI is probably world's best payment infrastructure, right? There's no one in the world, right? I'm not kidding you. About 3 years back, I was in Europe. I took some money from my cousin in Europe and I had to pay her back. And literally, I if I remember very correctly, I just had to return her 20 euros, but I ended up paying another 20 plus euros as a banking fee, right? In India, if you tell somebody that, they'll laugh at it and most likely they won't even understand, right? Like there's so many students, everyone here would be using UPI at the cafe in the campus, right? But imagine if somebody tells them, hey, you have to pay, a massive fee while scanning that QR code, right? So I think innovation is happening due to multiple things. But I also want to go back. I remember somebody said that, VCs compete. I think it's yes and no, because I think we are, I think the term is competition, right? Because we do a lot of collaboration as well as we compete. That's true, right? It's also like two students in the classroom who are helping each other, right? But are also trying to get better marks, right? So it's exactly like that. And between all of us, we would have something common. I'm a tiny angel investor in a company backed by Pranay's fund, right? So I backed a company called Airmeet, which is backed by Axel, right? And there are multiple companies which maybe we at Times Internet would have backed, right? And a Tanglin would be backing it, or the vice versa, where an Axel backed some company and Times Internet's coming back to, at a little later stage to back it, or maybe do it together, right? So just wanted to give a little perspective that VC is not only competition or not only working together. It's very usual in life. How humans behave is exactly what VC is like. And the last very quick point I wanted to make was, I think Pranay was telling everyone that what is VC like to most students. I think it's very celebritized, I would say. Believe us, be an entrepreneur if you have a choice, be an operator if you have a choice. Being a VC just looks fancy. Doing things is far more superior and may also result in a far more wealth creation opportunity, especially today, So think about it, be open to everything, of course. I do VC now because I truly, truly, truly enjoy it. But if I were to go and join a company, I may make a 5x salary, which is a insane delta, right? So just wanted to let people know that
right? In some way, thanks for being very, very honest and sharing that. Yeah, Pranay, please, you are smiling, you want to add something, please.
Rahul, you just wasted 45 minutes of
No, you brought, while you did not say it in as many words, you are clear.
To my defense, I always kept saying, if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, there's a second best outcome that you can get.
Investment. I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. And it gives you the arena view, it gives you the same adrenaline rush. It's just that you are not calling those shots which are so important day in, day out, minute by minute, right? Almost.
But if I may add one small thing.
Please.
99%, people who enter VC have a very big myth in their mind that by being a VC, we will see the journey of multiple startups. Okay. Every young analyst who comes to me stating, I want to enter VC so that I can see how companies are formed. Believe me, it is like standing 20 kilometers away from the Qutub Minar and looking at Qutub Minar. So you practically don't see anything, if you are very lucky, you may get to, join some board meetings. Typically, partners do that, but in some scenarios, some cases, or you may just join them as an observer if your partner is kind, okay? You will barely get to see anything, It's almost seeing 0.0001% of the journey of a company. If you really want to see how a company is built, go join somebody who's just started or starting up, in fact. I really want to say this because I'm sure out of the 200 attendees right now, a lot of them would think that, hey, we want to see how companies are built, how money is raised. You will not even learn how money is raised by being a part of VC. Or you would also learn that by being a part of a startup, when you'll have to hustle, when you'll have to gather those early customers, early digits, early traction, and then you will start understanding that, okay, how a fundraise has happened. So if you have any thought like that you will learn how a startup is formed by being a part of VC, no, not at all.
Beautiful. Thank you. I think in some sense, all of you have one thing in common. What you said is right. Every industry or every profession is specialized in its own sense. And therefore, you have your specialization, which is like raising capital, allocating it to right portfolio. And that's where it ceases. And it's beyond that, you'll have to have special interest to go and work with those startups. But as an investor, you can't do that because they want to run it, and that's the reason they are entrepreneurs, right? They won't allow you to run it as much. And the second thing, what you said in commonalities, join knowing very well that you have passion for it. Don't go by some things like, for example, sales. I used to think this 20 years back, कि सेल्स का मतलब क्या है? अरे फ्लाइट में घूमने का है, 5-star होटल में रहने का, खाना पीना, शोशागिरी, सीईओ को मिलने का, ये वो. Then when you get into the sales, you realize that is 5% or even 1% of your job. 99% is Word documents, spreadsheets, collection, procurement, APAR. That's what is your job, right? So you need to have passion for this topic, saying, I want to do this. And that's why choose those professions for those reasons. Thanks for busting some of those myths in our mind. Huh? Thanks very much, really, for volunteering.
I just want to give one picture.
Please, Akash. Yes.
Which is when I entered into VC, right? I was of the opinion that there would be one VC and there will be 10 founders lined up in front of VC saying, okay, give us money. And I will be like the cool kid in the room. Okay, take my check. It's the entirely opposite picture. It's like there are 10 VCs chasing one entrepreneur saying, please take my money, please take my money, please take my money. and this is how the industry works. And so basically your job is to an extent a glorified seller, which is you have to sell for them to take your capital. So yes, things are very different from
different at times. You are absolutely. Thanks, Akash. And there can't be better examples than you and Pranay. KGP, BE, okay, masters in engineering and then investment world, right? But obviously, you had that step jump with the entrepreneurship part very clearly. I could see. So it's incredible. So we will also try and make sure some water is shift from the Insti hostel and thoda hum log. My next entrepreneurship class, we will all have a sip of it to see if we can also join this bandwagon. So fabulous. Folks, among three of you, any one of you, one example of from your life or something that you've seen from close quarters, one investment, and don't tell the name, please. I'm obviously, because privacy, confidentiality, reputation, all of that, where you thought something and invested, but it really turned out to be the opposite. I'm sure you'll have dime a dozen, but ek bummer example de do, so that we will really know how the evaluation misses the mark, and which also is helpful for an entrepreneur to say, I need to be looking that evaluation myself. Right, it is in my own interest. Any one example, jo bhi ek bummer ka investment.
Sir, if you allow us to tell,
please.
Honestly, then we'll need a week because we'll have so many examples. So by all means, a VC is exactly that astrologer Baba sitting under the tree, right? Who really doesn't know anything himself, but is saying like, hey, why don't you show me a palm? I'll tell you what the future looks like. Okay. So in all honesty, it's a lot of guesswork, right? It's a lot of, so I'll give you a very quick example here. I also am legally allowed to personally angel invest, and I back a lot of startups very early stages, right? But at least I try to do one thing, which is I try to see if I've seen any part of what somebody is building. Okay, have I experienced that personally? So just to give you a couple of examples, as you can see, I have a decent build, right? So I used to be even thicker, right? So I took some health programs that actually helped me. And then I could understand a couple of health companies, right? Like startups building, for let's just say like around diabetes or around nutrition, right? So it became a little more easier for me to understand things, right? So there's no standard way, right? Like, for example, right, like some investments we do where we understand the things personally. For example, Akash has attempted building something in edtech, right? Or upskilling rather. So maybe it becomes a little more easier for him to understand things around that, right? But there's also a contrary flip to it, right? Because he or I, for example, I lost some weight in a program and then I gained it back. I may now have a permanent mindset that things don't work, right? Or maybe Akash was successful to some extent, but couldn't take it 100x from there. He may think that, hey, this doesn't work, right? So in all reality, a VC's work, I mean, we're usually wrong. I want to be very, very honest here, right? Like we are exactly like that astrologer who tells you that, hey, go do this. We don't know, it's in all honesty, only founders know. And those founders typically succeed who experiment a lot. So in all honesty, I'll in fact take the liberty to take a name because I know the founders would be very happy about it. There's a company called Happy, which is now an expense management card, which has recently been bought by Cred. But in reality, it literally started with QR codes, right? So, and I was very lucky to be, backing that company long back. When I look at it in the past, could it have been the Paytm? Maybe yes, maybe no, right? But some things are ahead of time. Some founders, if there are 10 founders attempting the same thing, believe me, it'll be very different. It's like everybody may think that, hey, just when you are in second grade and the teacher says like, hey, draw something, right? And everybody is drawing something. So everybody might think you're competing, but everybody is drawing their own picture. So it's very, very different, right? And I even look at a Make My Trip or a Yatra. Some people think they compete. Believe me, they don't. They have such different DNAs. And what is not known is Yatra is more of a B2B platform than it is to consumer. But to an outsider, it looks like, hey, both are places I can go book a hotel or a flight, for example, right? So what it looks or what it is on day zero and what it becomes is usually 99.999% different and unimaginable. Things just continue to happen and become something else. So I'm sorry if I took too long to explain this.
No, I think you gave a very appropriate answer because it wasn't philosophical at all. You are saying at some point in time, there is a hypothesis that you're betting on, and the chances of that hypothesis coming true, nobody can tell it is 100%. I mean, जिंदगी का ही guarantee नहीं है. How can you say 100% a company जीतने वाला है, right? So you are only, guess. Of course, it can't be a total flip of the coin. You have certain frameworks to see and evaluate in certain manner to improve the odds of success. That's how you are narrating that. Very nice. Pranay, yeah, you wanted to say something. Sorry, you want to add on anything?
Actually, I was just saying, I agree with what Rahul said largely, but
right.
That astrologer thing is literally like a very brutal picture. See, in reality, as a VC, as an early stage VC, at least we try to take as much market risk out of the picture as possible. At least in terms of the, how the market is going to respond.
Right.
You have all the other risks still waiting there to hound the founder. You have operational risk, business risk, co-founder risk, all of those things waiting for you to just hunt you down. But is what we are betting on is the market risk. And to a lot of extent, the reason why, a lot of these people in the fund, they all keep reading and talking to people only to clear their picture of the market.
Market risk.
If we can take the market risk out of the picture, I think we have solved. And I think there was a TechCrunch report, almost 80, I don't know, maybe it's wrong, but 80% of the startups fail within 1 to 3 years because of the same market risk. So if you can take the market risk out of the picture, you're actually much ahead in your investing acumen.
Right. Very nice.
But I can give you one example on the same point. So essentially, we invested in this company. It was trying to do like a Jira killer, essentially. It was trying to kill Jira. And the idea was clear. Problem statement was very deep. There are billions of Jira users globally. The market is really big. Problem makes sense. A lot of conversations made sense. There were enough proof points that people were loving it. There was enough pseudo product market fit. Like the market was agreeing to use something like this. The main challenge was GTM. Go to market was the problem, and that's where the company failed. So we tried to do as much of market thinking, market risk, customer conversations. All of those made sense when the product was finally out, and when it came live to the market. The company, and because I was working very closely with the founder, we were struggling very badly as to how do we get it even into the doors of some of these large mid-market or even SMB companies. How do you even get the point out that, okay, you should replace your software with this one? They say, okay, this makes sense, but I don't know if I will be able to ready to replace them, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah.
Made sense, product made sense, everything made sense. It's a go-to market that failed. So a lot of such examples, like even, for example, again, one of these ride, again, I'll leave Akash for the other example.
Sure.
I think there are many examples. Mostly, sometimes timing is very, very important. So you have the best team working on the best product with the deepest of insights, but just the timing is not there.
Wrong time.
Wrong. Another interesting example, by the way, and it is still, the jury is still out on that example. I'll say Clubhouse. And I don't know how many eyebrows I am raising right now in this room. But so again, like A16Z, which is one of the most prominent venture capital fund in the world, invested them at 4 billion valuation. They had some traction. They became viral. There was a lot of news about it. But now that Twitter has also launched their own version, there is of course Discord, where all of these voice rooms are already happening. So they are not getting as much traction as they were. But A16Z, when they were investing in them, were investing that they will create a customer behavior which will be very, very hard to replicate by some of these other incumbents. And that's how they thought about it. And of course, like VCs can be very, very wrong about how the customer will behave, because only time can tell only how the customer will behave. So again, I'm not sure. I mean, 2 years down the line, maybe they do become much more successful than what they are now. But it's just that these examples abound everywhere. Like I'll just make one more statement and close this, is that we VCs are not known by the bad investments that we make. We VCs are hounded by the good investments that we miss.
Yeah. That's a good one. Absolutely. That's a nice one.
We remember the companies which we could have invested, but we passed because we thought like they're not as exciting. And then they went on to become like multi-billion-dollar company. Misho, I'll give you an example, right? Most of the venture capital funds actually rejected them.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And now that is a part of anti-portfolio of all the VC funds out there.
Thanks for sharing that perspective as well. Very, very nice. Beautiful. Folks, sorry, Arvind, I am back to you now. Are there any questions at all on the question board? I completely missed it because it was such a fascinating discussion. I didn't want to cut anything in the middle. Any questions there?
Yeah, guys, any question, any like controversial, scandalous that you want to ask?
Yeah, we have seen, you never get such candid people, honestly.
Scandal. So let me start. Yeah. Let me tell you the reality. What Shark Tank looks like is not what VCs are like.
Absolutely. Shark Tank is a completely synthetic view. It's almost akin to acting. So that's definitely not reality. Thanks. So I think Arvind, any questions from anyone? If there aren't.
Students have any questions, you can raise your hands.
Maybe one or two quick ones. Otherwise, we are pretty much done. All right. I guess if there are no questions, I just want to conclude. Pranay, Rahul, Akash, thank you so much for making time for us. Can't be more grateful for you for really making our Sunday so enriching. I'm going home wiser, right? I'm going home wiser. I can tell you that much. And these are slightly uncertain times, but I'm sure all of us will travel back, maybe 6 months, 1 year, or whatever the time frame. And we would love to have you in our campus. We have one of the finest campuses in the planet, I would like to say, if it is, if somebody will wake me up and say maybe India at least. And Udaipur is a lovely city. I would love to take you around. So we will ensure we will meet again in person, for sure. It can't be just this
next
virtual.
Time, let's rent that boat, right? And do a session on that. So I was very lucky to travel to Udaipur just a few months back.
I see. Okay.
I've fallen in love with it. So just one email and next day I'll be there.
Fantastic. I'll take you to some sort of places. Even I agree with you. I'm sure if you have girlfriends and wives, they'll be raising their eyebrow. But, I want to make it a boys' day out in some sense. Okay. So that's a promise from me and the Institute. It's an absolute honor and a privilege we had this 1 hour with you. God bless you all. And best wishes. And folks, thanks for your rapt up attention. Arvind,
and
back
also,
to you.
I also have to mention, we thank you, our Professor Rajesh Pandit for.
Arey, I am part of the family, yaar. Please, वो बंद करो.
Thank you for the really thoughtful question.
Yeah, no. Thanks,
Thank you.
thanks everyone, and thanks, Professor. Like it was, I think I am also going home a little wiser, and this was a fun conversation. So,
and I'm
thanks.
pretty sure it is enriching and enlightening session for all the students who's hearing this. So thank you for being a part of our e-summit.
Thanks, everyone. And
Bye, done.
if you have any questions, feel free to reach out us on LinkedIn, Twitter. Again, saying on behalf of all three of us. And yes, if you're building something, reach out to us. We'd be happy to help. Cheers. Bella ciao, Professor.
Bye. Ciao.
Students, you can log off. We'll be starting again at 1:30. So you can join back at 1:25. Thank you. Students, you can log off. You can join again at 1:30. Why are they still here?
Bhai, we have to tell them networking.
Guys, YouTube पे streaming still.
Yeah. It's networking. Anybody wants to join them in the networking lounge. Rajesh Pandit sir ko we have to tell.
Shivam.
I don't have the link, bro.
Recording stopped.
I think still there are 2 to 3 students here.
Ayush good?
It's still streaming on YouTube, huh? Just letting you guys know.
Okay.
And then only you can stop or pause.
Yeah, I'll pause out.